A fierce battle erupted as fighters aggressively challenged their opponent's strength. Battered warriors gasped and coughed heavily while struggling to endure the brutal onslaught. Someone proclaimed absolute dominance over the entire world while urging Kami forward. 2 years ago, the Grand Lemore Citadel stood tall as a sacred shrine. A massive crowd formed an incredibly long line, leaving onlookers in pure awe. Anticipation built as they realized the glowing altar granted special gifts. Someone eagerly asked Kai if he felt excited about the upcoming ceremony. Kai Heinemann nervously agreed, hiding his deep anxiety regarding his unknown gift. Exhausted, Kai admitted his sleepless night, brushing off concerns while comparing himself to Rina. Excitement buzzed through the air as everyone eagerly guessed what abilities they might receive. Kai mentally prepared himself for the monumental day he would finally receive divine blessings. In this world, 13-year-olds received special divine abilities known simply as gifts. These diverse magical abilities completely dictated a person's entire future path and career. His airhead childhood friend Rina Grot cheerfully wished to become a princess or rabbit. Kai gently crushed Rina's dreams by explaining that rabbits and princesses were not gifts. Curious, Rina immediately turned the question around to ask what ability Kai desired. Kai lied through his teeth, claiming he wanted a sword-based ability. He secretly dreaded inheriting his famous grandfather's dojo and absolutely hated sword gifts. Deep down, Kai desperately wanted an adventuring gift to become a hunter like his mother. He dreamed of exploring mysterious lands and defeating evil monsters as a thrilling hunter. Knowing his severe lack of swordsmanship talent, he doubted a sword gift would help. While Kai lamented his slow learning and weakness, Rina happily asked about becoming a cat. Kai corrected Rina again, internally deciding his talented relative Roman should inherit the dojo. A sudden, overwhelming surge of energy captured everyone's attention across the grand courtyard. The massive commotion led the crowd to assume someone just awakened a rare ability. A striking young girl emerged from the chaotic crowd with an air of absolute confidence. Kai and Rina instantly recognized their friend Lila as she approached them warmly. Breathing heavily, Lila arrived as Kai excitedly noted she had already completed her ceremony. Their childhood friend Lila Hellner proudly announced she received the sword expert gift. Lila was also Kai's arranged fiancée and heir to a rival longsword dojo. However, their forced engagement was strictly a business decision made by their ambitious parents. Lila smoothly shifted the conversation, asking if Kai and Rina were next in line. Another friend suddenly interrupted their reunion, greeting Roman and Keith enthusiastically. The group eagerly pressed Roman to reveal the specific details of his new ability. Tension spiked as Roman dramatically prepared to declare his highly anticipated magical gift. A sharp gasp escaped the crowd as Roman made his grand, startling entrance. Addressing Lila, Roman confidently announced he possessed the legendary Spear King gift. Lila coolly dismissed his boasting, stating she had already witnessed his awakening. Unfazed, Roman smiled smugly and expressed gladness that she saw his true power. He then mockingly addressed Lila by her full name, shifting the atmosphere entirely. A paladin approaches Lila to discuss her newly acquired gift. The knight praises her daily relentless training, elevating the significance of her sword expert ability. He invites her to their local military post for a more detailed discussion. Kai watches in sheer awe, realizing Lila caught the attention of elite kingdom knights. Lila nervously accepts the invitation as her proud parents eagerly urge her forward. Roman scoffs dismissively, glaring at Lila as she prepares to leave. Before departing, Lila turns back to warmly bid Kai and Rina farewell. Kai waves back with a gentle smile, wishing her a safe journey. Keith softly apologizes to Kai for Roman acting so strangely worked up. Roman barks at Keith to keep moving, showing his obvious impatience. Keith waves goodbye to Kai before hurrying after the agitated Roman. Rina tugs at Kai, noting the line is finally moving forward. The crystal glows brilliantly as Rina places her hands upon the divine altar. The examiner gasps in shock, revealing Rina has awakened the Swordmaster gift. Rina tilts her head in pure confusion, asking if that is a good thing. Onlookers murmur about the insane succession of incredibly powerful gifts appearing this year. Whispers spread that these massive power awakenings signal an impending demon attack. The lead knight angrily scolds the gossipers, demanding absolute silence from the crowd. The examiner gestures for the next person in line to step forward. Kai states his name before nervously placing his hand onto the glowing crystal. A strange, dark energy suddenly violently pulses from the altar. Kai gasps as an oppressive weight suddenly crushes down upon his entire body. Panic sets in as the crystal's bright light completely vanishes without explanation. The examiner stares blankly, preparing to announce Kai's shocking results. A massive, grim aura perfectly reflects the crushing weight of reality. The scene flashes forward to the Lamore training grounds, revealing Kai's devastating title. Roman brutally mocks Kai, loudly calling him the most incompetent person in the universe. The other disciples roar with cruel laughter, correcting Roman on the exact mocking title. Kai desperately attempts to dodge, but Roman launches a vicious, overpowering strike. A brutal blow connects directly, sending shockwaves through Kai's battered body. Kai collapses violently to the ground, hitting the dirt with a heavy thud. He groggily awakens outside, staring blankly up at the clear open sky. Lila suddenly rushes over, frantically checking if Kai is seriously hurt. She kneels beside him, her face filled with deep, genuine concern. Kai softly says her name, still disoriented from the brutal beating. She gently inspects his heavily bruised face, noting the nasty bump on his head. Lila kindly reaches out, offering her hand to help him up. Kai hesitates and declines the help, insisting he can stand perfectly on his own. He stubbornly wipes the dirt from his face, trying to regain his composure. Kai brushes off her worries, sadly admitting this harsh treatment happens all the time. Kai quietly accepted his harsh new reality. Endless torment became his daily routine after receiving his incompetent gift. His physical abilities plummeted, leaving him permanently weaker than untrained civilians. Former friends ignored him while cruel strangers openly threw rocks. He immediately lost his inheritance and his arranged partnership with Lila. Kai Heinemann became an absolute nobody stripped of his former titles. He convinced himself he was completely fine with this brutal normal. Lila gently called out to the battered Kai. She asked if he was leaving for the royal capital soon. Kai agreed, noting it was too difficult to remain in Lamore. He hoped the capital would finally treat him like a human. Lila asked if he planned to find a job there. Kai clarified his true plan to visit a neighboring city. He targeted Babel, a city where powerless people could find work. Lila nodded quietly upon hearing his exact destination. Lila excitedly promised to send him letters once settled. She suddenly retracted the offer with a mysterious smile. She giggled softly while hiding a secret plan. Lila waved goodbye and rushed off to pack her luggage. Kai watched her leave and pondered his next move. He decided to visit his grandfather one last time. A familiar, hostile voice called out from behind. Roman boasted loudly about his incredible Spear King status. He aggressively claimed his exclusive right to partner with Lila. Kai calmly countered that Lila should decide her own future. Roman furiously mocked Kai for thinking he still had a chance. Roman proclaimed his deep dedication far exceeded Kai's. Someone suddenly interrupted Roman's heated rant. Disciples yelled for Roman to ignore the failure and return. Laughing cruelly, Roman agreed and turned away from Kai. Frustration boiled beneath Kai's calm exterior. Kai quietly wished he could explain he only saw her as family. Later, Kai respectfully thanked his grandfather for everything. His grandfather sincerely apologized for all the recent hardships. Kai stared in pure confusion at the sudden apology. The old man regretted breaking the partnership and chasing him away. Kai quickly reassured him that he truly did not mind. His grandfather still looked visibly weighed down by guilt. Kai brightly explained that traveling to Babel was his actual dream. His grandfather looked at him with quiet understanding. The old man laughed warmly, mentioning how old he had gotten. He noted that Kai previously had a deeply clouded look in his eyes. Encouraging his grandson, he urged Kai to freely live his life in the capital. Kai realized his grandfather knew his true dream was becoming a hunter. The old man paused briefly, ensuring Kai paid close attention to his next words. He firmly declared that Kai would always remain family regardless of his magical abilities. Kai silently doubted he would ever return to this place. Suddenly yelling, the grandfather demanded Kai visit him occasionally. Startled by the fierce outburst, Kai quickly promised he would definitely return. Abruptly ending their chat, the old man quickly slid the wooden door shut. From behind the closed door, he gently told Kai to take care. Kai softly promised to do the same as he finally departed. Stepping outside into the daylight, Kai prepared to begin his long journey alone. He tightly secured his backpack straps with a newfound sense of determination. Kai eagerly marched toward Babel to seize his opportunity as a hunter. Bursting with bright confidence, he vowed to make his lifelong dreams a reality. Kai searched for the carriage station, navigating the busy streets around the corner. He gasped in absolute awe upon spotting a remarkably luxurious carriage nearby. Kai wondered what kind of wealthy figure could possibly be riding inside. A cheerful noble girl suddenly appeared and introduced herself as Rosemary. Kai was stunned, realizing she shared a name with the kingdom's priestess. Bowing politely, Rosemary announced she would accompany him to the royal capital. She warmly asked Kai to simply refer to her as Rose. Overwhelmed by her friendliness, Kai nervously accepted her invitation to talk. The awkward dynamic between Kai and the wealthy travelers quickly filled the room. Kai looked around in complete confusion as a hostile glare locked onto him. An attendant named Anna angrily scolded Kai, calling him an incompetent brat. Lady Rose fiercely reprimanded Anna for bringing dishonor to Kai's respected family. Terrified, Anna bowed low and offered a deep, frantic apology to Rose. Anna steamed silently with intense frustration after receiving the harsh reprimand. Another servant attempted to justify Anna's overprotective actions to Lady Rose. Kai let out a quiet sigh of relief as the intense argument settled down. The grand carriage prepared to set off on its journey toward the capital. Kai felt completely bewildered by the sudden chaotic turn of events. Rose turned back toward Kai with a warm, welcoming expression on her face. She enthusiastically declared that it was finally time for them to depart. Rose urged Kai to board, leaving him questioning noble behavior entirely. Kai felt deeply grateful for his grandfather's careful travel arrangements. Rose kindly invited Kai to take a seat directly beside her inside. The carriage rolled smoothly down the long, scenic road toward their destination. As evening fell, Kai realized how long the journey to the capital would be. The travelers gathered around as dinner was finally served at the station. Servants efficiently handed out basic food rations to the waiting crowd. A cruel guard shoved meager rations at Kai, ordering him to leave immediately. The staff rudely barked at Kai to hurry away without complaining. Confused, Kai remembered his grandfather had already prepaid all travel costs. He wondered if food required an additional separate fee he lacked. Before he could think, a forceful shove knocked Kai completely off balance. Kai let out a painful groan as he crashed heavily against the hard ground. To his dismay, his precious piece of bread tumbled into the filthy dirt. An aggressive bully stomped over, fiercely demanding to know Kai's problem. Kai stood his ground, pointing out that the bully bumped into him first. Enraged, the bully struck Kai while hurling insults about his incompetence. Onlookers watched in silence until someone finally yelled for the bully to stop. High tension filled the air as the confrontation reached a boiling point. Anna stepped forward, glaring at the commotion with a sharp gaze. Anna firmly denied protecting the accused traitor, claiming she merely followed Lady Rose's strict orders. The aggressive bully scoffed and slowly backed away from the intense confrontation. A towering man suddenly arrived and sternly demanded to know the cause of the ruckus. The frustrated bully complained about his severe hunger before storming off in obvious annoyance. Anna let out a deep sigh of relief as the heavy tension finally faded away. Still shaken, Kai awkwardly attempted to express his sincere gratitude for her timely intervention. Anna shot him a cold, piercing glare that instantly silenced his words. She harshly ordered him away, reminding him she only helped because of Lady Rose. The imposing man quietly observed the tense interaction between the two youths. He softly noted that his unruly subordinates had caused unnecessary trouble once again. The large man gently called out Kai's name with a surprisingly soft tone. Kai recognized Mr. Arnold, who immediately offered a deep and sincere apology. Bowing deeply, Arnold begged for forgiveness regarding his subordinates' completely unacceptable behavior. Kai internalizes the hatred, believing his cursed existence naturally invites such harsh treatment. He calmly reassured Arnold, sadly admitting he was already completely used to the abuse. Unwilling to accept that, Arnold suddenly shouted with surging, protective energy. He enthusiastically promised to personally deliver Kai's meals directly to his private tent. Laughing loudly, Arnold dismissed Kai's polite refusal and urged the boy to be honest. The scene suddenly shifted directly to the bustling, chaotic kitchen area. Arnold stood over the terrified head chef with an intensely menacing glare. The trembling chef desperately stammered out weak excuses about strictly following Sir Frankton's orders. Ignoring the excuses, Arnold furiously demanded they prepare the boy's food immediately. The thoroughly terrified kitchen staff scrambled frantically to obey the imposing warrior's command. Stuttering wildly, the head chef frantically ordered his staff to serve Kai without delay. Arnold angrily berated the cooks, demanding they add significantly more filling to the portions. A truly massive, steaming plate of delicious food was hastily prepared. Staring at the absolute mountain of food, Kai thanked Arnold with pure astonishment. Arnold smiled brightly, enthusiastically encouraging the young boy to eat well and grow strong. Having successfully completed his kind mission, Arnold politely turned to take his leave. He promised to strictly reprimand Frankton and the others to prevent future harassment. The towering knight calmly walked away, leaving the young boy in quiet awe. Kai smiled warmly, deeply moved to realize that genuinely kind people still existed. 3 days later, the royal carriage traveled deeply into the lush Silka Great Forest. Sitting peacefully in the moving carriage, Kai happily enjoyed a massive, overstuffed sandwich. He happily noted that the terrified chefs continuously provided huge portions since that incident. The peaceful carriage ride was abruptly interrupted by a sudden, unexpected violent jolt. Ignoring the bump, Kai mentally praised the amazing Mr. Arnold for entirely stopping the harassment. The heavy carriage steadily continued its long journey through the thick, mysterious woods. Staring out the small window, Kai found himself sinking into deep, nostalgic thoughts. He quietly wondered what his old friends Rena and Keith were up to back home. Kai recalled his friends, noting Keith studying magic and Rena battling demons. Kai secretly worried if the clumsy Rena could survive her dangerous quest. A voice broke his thoughts as Rose nervously requested to enter his tent. Kai quickly scrambled up, gesturing for the noblewoman to enter his shelter. A heavy, awkward silence instantly filled the cramped space between them. Confusion swirled in Kai's mind regarding the young noble's sudden visit. He dreaded dealing with nobles, fearing her presence would trigger brutal harassment. Mustering his courage, he nervously asked the exact reason for her arrival. Startling him, Rose tightly shut her eyes and shouted a massive apology. Kai physically recoiled, staring at the suddenly bowing girl in pure shock. Rose frantically explained she just learned about the harassment from her knights. Waving his hands, Kai quickly assured her the painful incident was forgotten. Refusing his reassurance, she firmly insisted the bullying was entirely her fault. She regretfully revealed selfishly begging his grandfather to travel together. Guilt weighed heavily on her delicate features as she processed the consequences. Seeking clarity, Kai gently asked why a noble would specifically request him. Rose shocked him by revealing she actually knew his friends Rena and Keith. Kai gasped aloud, bewildered that this elite noble knew his childhood companions. She explained Keith studied alongside her, while Rena became her best friend. Kai panicked, wondering if this magical girl was secretly the legendary priestess. Shaking off his theories, Kai eagerly asked if his friends mentioned him. Smiling brightly, Rose confirmed Rena constantly talked about Kai during magical training. Kai nervously sweated, absolutely certain Rena shared highly embarrassing childhood stories. Understanding her motives, Kai realized she wanted to meet Rena's famous friend. Eager for updates, Kai asked if his clumsy friends survived the hero team. Rose giggled warmly, assuring him Rena's childlike personality easily won the kingdom. A genuine smile finally broke across Kai's face hearing his friend was safe. He softly admitted his deep worries regarding her notoriously dangerous clumsiness. Their pleasant conversation abruptly halted as the heavy tent flaps swung open. The glaring Anna stepped inside, immediately locking her hostile eyes onto Kai. Ignoring Kai, the strict maid firmly reminded Rose that bedtime had passed. Rose apologized playfully while Kai silently trembled beneath Anna's terrifying gaze. Before she departed, Kai sincerely thanked the cheerful noble for the updates. Beaming with joy, Rose eagerly promised they would chat again very soon. Left alone, an exhausted Kai finally prepared to sleep for the night. Suddenly, the massive warrior Arnold unexpectedly barged through the closed tent flap. A startled Kai jumped back as Arnold gently apologized for the intrusion. The giant knight humbly bowed his head, stating he came to thank Kai. Utterly confused, Kai insisted he had absolutely nothing to be thanked for. Arnold warmly praised Kai for making Lady Rose genuinely happy tonight. Kai frantically urged the towering knight to raise his head, insisting he should be the one thanking Lady Rose for her kindness. The towering man explained he deeply empathized with the boy because he had also been burdened with a remarkably weak gift. Smiling warmly, Arnold prepared to share an incredibly important piece of advice regarding living with weak abilities. He firmly promised that endless hard work and determination would inevitably be rewarded in the future. Stunned by the genuine encouragement, Kai eagerly nodded in absolute agreement. Meanwhile, a dark and ominous presence gathered deep within the shadows of the massive Silka Great Forest. A sinister group of hidden figures plotted silently among the dense, ancient trees. Emerging from the shadows, an imposing warrior respectfully addressed Sir Frankton. Frankton questioned their current progress, smirking as his ally confirmed everything was proceeding splendidly. The elite summoner proudly declared his terrifying army of Black Panthers and ogres had completely surrounded the unsuspecting royal camp. Frankton highly praised the supreme summoner Ens, though the dark mage immediately brushed off the blatant flattery. Shifting focus, ENS strictly demanded an update regarding the royal princess's current movements. Frankton reported that Princess Rose had finally fallen completely asleep after speaking with the incompetent boy earlier. He ruthlessly outlined their sinister plan to trigger a massive commotion and separate Captain Arnold from the vulnerable princess. Eliminating Rose would automatically guarantee the kingdom's throne for Frankton's chosen master, Prince Gilbert. A rival commander mocked Frankton's blatant betrayal, proudly claiming true Empire soldiers would never sell out their masters. Sir Signial the Sword Lord fiercely glared, deeply offended by the mere implication that they lacked honorable shame. He mockingly apologized for his blunt phrasing while entirely maintaining his hostile, condescending attitude. Enraged by the insult, Frankton furiously demanded Signial withdraw his incredibly offensive statement about their nation's internal politics. ENS coldly intervened, claiming their actions were merely a political arrangement rather than outright treason. Frankton fiercely shouted Signial's name as intense animosity boiled between the fragile allies. The Dark Summoner quickly apologized for his partner, calmly blaming the tense atmosphere of operating inside a foreign territory. Swallowing his burning rage, Frankton agreed fighting was useless and turned back to initiate the violent operation. Before vanishing into the shadows, the corrupt knight formally entrusted the violent assault to ENS and Signial. Frankton internally celebrated, absolutely thrilled that the perfect moment to violently banish the princess had finally arrived. He felt entirely invincible knowing two of the Glittner Empire's legendary 6 commanders were spearheading the ambush. The traitor viciously despised Rose, terrified her progressive reign would permanently shatter his precious noble order. Swearing upon his proud lineage, Frankton vowed to execute this massive betrayal for the ultimate greater good. He pledged his absolute, unwavering loyalty to Prince Gilbert as the Darkwoods prepared to erupt in chaos. Kai groaned in the dark, regretting not using the bathroom before finally sleeping. Fearing discovery by the others, he decided against relieving himself near his tent. Struggling to see his footing, he cautiously wandered deeper into the dark woods. He finally found a suitable spot, pausing as something abruptly caught his attention. A deep sense of confusion washed over him as he stared ahead. A mysterious cloaked figure stood completely silently among the ancient, towering trees. Terrified by the sudden appearance, Kai nearly lost his absolute composure. Kai nervously asked if the mysterious stranger lived somewhere nearby. The cloaked figure paused, realizing an unexpected accident had just occurred. The stranger silently noted that this boy was entirely absent from his report. A sinister smirk crept across the summoner's face as he formulated a plan. He decided a little playtime would be fine if it avoided disrupting operations. A violent shudder completely overtook Kai as pure dread flooded his veins. The sadistic man mockingly urged the terrified boy to run away incredibly fast. He snapped his fingers sharply, issuing a chilling ultimatum to his new prey. He cruelly taunted that catching his victim too easily would be incredibly boring. Vicious monster hounds emerged from the shadows, hissing violently at the boy. Panic exploded in Kai's mind as he desperately tried to comprehend the nightmare. He blindly sprinted away, wondering why this stranger unleashed horrific monsters. Tears blurred his vision as he questioned why an innocent person was targeted. His entire body screamed in agony as he desperately gasped for air. He frantically begged his incompetent gift to vanish just once to increase speed. Hearing footsteps, Kai dreaded dying before ever reaching Babel to become a hunter. He bitterly blamed his cursed gift for continuously inviting endless violent suffering. Memories of relentless torment flashed violently through his mind as he pushed harder. He wept in absolute frustration, cursing the divine blessing that ruined his life. Kai desperately wished he had just received a basic swordsmanship gift instead. He longed for a normal, peaceful life running the dojo alongside his friends. He completely rejected his magical gift if it meant dying in a forest. The massive beast leaped forward, cornering the exhausted boy entirely. Kai stared into the abyss, wondering if this brutal moment was the end. Gasping heavily, he refused to accept that his journey would conclude so pathetically. The savage monsters snarled violently as they slowly closed in on their prey. A massive waterfall suddenly roared behind him, completely blocking his retreat. A strange, brilliant light mysteriously pulsed from deep within the cascading water. The demonic hounds roared fiercely, preparing to launch their final fatal strike. Knowing he was trapped, Kai tightly braced himself for the absolute worst. Refusing to surrender, he bravely decided to push forward into the glowing unknown. He fiercely vowed that his grand story would not end in this place. Kai threw himself blindly toward the mysterious light hidden behind the rushing waterfall. A mysterious glowing portal illuminated the dark cave walls. Kai stared blankly into the unknown void ahead. Pure confusion washed over him as reality distorted completely. He vividly remembered escaping the terrifying forest monsters earlier. Panic spiked when he realized the entrance had completely vanished. Exhausted lungs burned fiercely as he gasped violently for air. Slumping down, he hoped he finally escaped the deadly beasts. He nervously wondered if this glowing cave was a trap. Seeking rest, he suddenly spotted an ancient stone building nearby. Strange glowing symbols decorated the grand architectural temple structure. He cautiously questioned if the massive structure was a temple. A mysterious pedestal radiated an eerie, inviting blue magical energy. Cryptic alien text scrolled rapidly across the glowing stone monolith. Unable to read the text, he noticed a distinct handprint. Mustering his courage, he bravely decided to take a risk. Placing his hand down, the pedestal immediately flashed brilliantly bright. He gasped in pure shock as magical rings scanned him. The system registered Kai and verified his divine tier access. Kai stood stunned that his weak gift ranked above divine. The system officially welcomed him to the trials of the gods. Floating text detailed strict rules regarding halted time and items. He stared blankly at the overwhelming magical holographic rule text. He quickly realized the entire temple was a massive dungeon. Despair bloomed knowing only elite hunters cleared these difficult relics. He frantically deemed his seemingly hopeless situation to be pointless. Slapping his cheeks, he forced his panicked mind to calm. He decided to test his newly granted item box first. A glowing digital screen suddenly projected directly into his face. He cautiously questioned if this interface was the magical inventory. The screen displayed escape shoes and an indestructible stick. He nervously pressed the digital button for the magical shoes. A blinding flash of bright light startled him entirely backward. He marveled as the physical shoes materialized perfectly before him. He commanded the magical system to store the boots away. The physical shoes instantly vanished back into the digital storage. He excitedly confirmed the magical inventory actually functioned perfectly well. He enthusiastically praised the incredible rarity of this merchant tier ability. Shifting focus, he prepared to test the appraisal skill next. He confidently activated appraisal directly onto the stored magical shoes. The interface detailed the fleeing mechanics and combat nullification rules. Kai marvels at the shoes, amazed by their unprecedented escape abilities. Activating his appraisal skill, he wonders if he can analyze his own body. Shocked, he views his divine status, realizing his weak blessing holds limitless potential. He ponders the vague conditions required to finally surpass every physical limit. He questions if this abstract potential simply means his hard effort will pay off. Confused by gift ranks, his focus quickly shifts toward locating the legendary elixir. He decides to systematically appraise everything in the room to find the hidden item. His magical search quickly leads him directly toward the fabled elixir spring. He stares in disbelief at the magical liquid freely gushing from a natural spring. He marvels at the impossible structure producing an endlessly flowing stream of healing water. Testing its power, he deliberately snips his finger with his sharp blade. Dipping his bloody finger into the water, the wound instantly closes completely. He stares at his perfectly healed skin in absolute awe and wonder. Pure excitement washes over him as he realizes the true value of this spring. He eagerly anticipates immense praise from the Hunter Guild for this monumental historical find. He confidently reviews his incredible new arsenal of magical tools and granted skills. Fully equipped and energized, Kai vows to completely escape this mysterious dungeon immediately. Kai stood at the gloomy entrance, realizing he had finally entered the dreaded dungeon. He hugged the cold wall tightly, desperately trying to remember his hunter manual training. Pushing his paralyzing fear aside, he vowed to conquer the grand adventure he desired. He traced the rough stone wall, suddenly stopping as something unusual caught his attention. Staring down the dark corridor, Kai hesitated before a massive, highly confusing crossroads. A heavy silence filled the air as an unseen danger lurked violently nearby. Without warning, a terrifying unseen force brutally clamped down in the pitch-black darkness. Kai screamed in pure agony as a horrific monster suddenly devoured his right arm. Blood sprayed everywhere while he desperately struggled against the sheer, overwhelming physical pain. He wailed in absolute terror, begging for the brutal nightmare to immediately end. The massive beast roared fiercely, fully prepared to completely rip its helpless prey apart. Using his final ounce of strength, Kai scrambled wildly away from the bloodthirsty monster. His blurry vision slowly faded back as he collapsed safely onto the hard ground. Groggily waking up, he desperately tried to remember how he reached this strange place. He blankly stared at the glowing stone ceiling of the magical elixir spring room. Gasping heavily for air, he realized he had somehow returned to the safe sanctuary. Remembering the terrifying monster, he frantically lunged toward the glowing healing elixir spring. He desperately submerged his mangled stump into the incredibly miraculous, glowing healing water. Staring in pure disbelief, Kai realized his missing arm had miraculously grown back entirely. He sighed in massive relief, profusely thanking the magical elixir for saving his life. He noted his shredded clothes and dried blood, realizing magic could not fix fabric. Trembling slightly, Kai accepted that his brutal near-death experience was a terrifying reality. Despair completely crushed him as he realized he must eventually face the deadly dungeon. He shuddered violently, knowing pure luck would absolutely not save him a second time. Crippling dread completely paralyzed his body, locking him securely inside the safe room. He screamed in absolute frustration, vehemently refusing to ever step back into that hell. Breaking down completely, he wept bitterly over his continuously cursed and truly miserable fate. 7 agonizing days slowly passed while he remained cowardly trapped inside the glowing sanctuary. Clutching his shrinking stomach, he realized he would quickly starve without any real food. His desperate eyes slowly locked onto a highly dangerous creature crawling across the floor. He appraised the toxic bug, realizing its deadly venom could instantly kill a dragon. Despite its high nutritional value, he knew eating the bug meant absolute, instant death. Swallowing hard, he somehow survived his intense hunger until the excruciating 15th day arrived. He helplessly chugged more glowing elixir, trying desperately to suppress his endless, hollow starvation. Forcing down another heavy gulp of water, he prepared for the absolute worst outcome. Driven completely mad by hunger, he finally grabbed the deadly toxic bug in desperation. Throwing caution away completely, he violently shoved the highly venomous insect into his mouth. His vision instantly turned blood red as the horrific lethal venom destroyed his body. A sudden mechanical system voice announced he had miraculously acquired a poison-resistant skill. Blinking away the intense pain, Kai realized with utter shock that he actually survived. Kai bolted upright in shock, desperately wondering whose mysterious voice echoed inside his mind. A magical screen confirmed he acquired a poison-resistant skill by surviving the highly lethal venom. Clutching his stomach, Kai thanked the miraculous elixir for saving his life despite the intense nausea. A severe headache pierced his skull, causing extreme dizziness that forced him to grab his head. Desperate for instant relief, he quickly scooped up handfuls of the glowing elixir water and drank deeply. The magical water immediately flushed the pain away, entirely curing his severe headache and paralyzing dizziness. Relieved that his intense hunger vanished, Kai grimly accepted his diet would now consist of dungeon bugs. 100 grueling days passed, culminating in his poison resistance skillfully evolving to the intermediate stage. Staring intently at the glowing screen, Kai slowly realized the power of his upgraded magical resistance. He cheered enthusiastically upon realizing he could now safely consume endless venomous bugs without dying. His bright celebration quickly faded into depression as the harsh reality of an eternal bug diet sank in. An entire year dragged on in isolation, leaving Kai physically exhausted and drifting toward mental collapse. Desperate to maintain his fading sanity, he firmly decided to practice intense swordsmanship to clear his mind. 10 years passed while swinging his stick, keeping him completely isolated from the frozen outside world. 40 endless years of relentless physical training fundamentally transformed the trapped boy into a hardened warrior. Gripping his wooden stick tightly, Kai fiercely announced his imaginary target for his daily training session. He fiercely locked onto his phantom opponent, projecting Roman's arrogant face entirely across the cave wall. He violently launched forward, unleashing a rapid flurry of devastating strikes against the projection of his bully. Heavy shockwaves rippled through the damp air as Kai relentlessly countered every single invisible assault. With one explosive final surge of raw power, Kai cleanly shattered Roman's imaginary defenses completely. Staring victoriously at the empty space, Kai proudly declared he had finally surpassed his childhood tormentor. He lowered his makeshift weapon smoothly and collapsed onto the hard stone floor with an exhausted sigh. Wiping heavy sweat from his brow, he sincerely thanked the imaginary Roman for concluding his combat simulation. He joyfully noted his massive improvement, thrilled he could now flawlessly defeat his legendary grandfather mentally. The magical system suddenly chimed loudly, instantly grabbing Kai's complete attention with a massive glowing notification. A holographic screen confirmed he acquired a basic swordsmanship skill after practicing flawlessly for 40 grueling years. Utterly shocked, Kai realized his deep mental visualization training directly registered as highly authentic combat experience. Motivated by the promise of higher stages, Kai enthusiastically vowed to continue his relentless virtual training indefinitely. 800 years of non-stop training finally rewarded the immortal boy with the intermediate swordsmanship rank. Seeking greater power, Kai actively visualized the legendary dual-wielding swordsman Graham and the magic swordsman Silver. He aggressively summoned the terrifying mental image of Ashburn, the legendary former sword emperor of Glitner. Boiling with raw confidence, Kai boldly prepared to engage the ultimate historical masters inside his mental battlefield. 1,500 years later, an intensely fierce Kai angrily dismissed the legendary historical heroes for being weak. Roaring with feral energy, the powerful warrior challenged every legendary phantom to completely strike him simultaneously. 3,000 agonizing years after entering the dungeon, Kai stood as a towering force of pure destruction. Raising his unbreakable stick calmly, he coldly challenged the single remaining combatant capable of surviving his strikes. His intense gaze pierced straight forward, locking directly onto the ultimate phantom opponent standing across the battlefield. He boldly proclaimed his supremacy, confident he had finally surpassed every legendary sword saint in entire existence. Activating his supreme power, he flawlessly executed the absolute ultimate stage of his devastating magical swordsmanship technique. He furiously dashed toward the perfect mirror image of himself, engaging the strongest virtual enemy imaginable. The dual forces of absolute perfection clashed violently together, unleashing a blinding shockwave of pure kinetic energy. A catastrophic impact completely shattered the heavy dungeon air as the ultimate versions of Kai crossed blades. Kai immediately cast his magical appraisal skill to scan the monster. He realized every single stat remained entirely unknown except its name. Kai smirked, finding the mysterious enemy incredibly interesting. He locked onto the terrifying creature known as Bataman. He fiercely challenged the beast to reveal his true path forward. The grasshopper monster viciously launched its massive first attack. Dodging easily, Kai mocked the creature's pathetic, slow movements. The furious beast snarled loudly in pure frustration. Kai analyzed the beast, noting its powerful leg attacks. The combatants clashed violently, creating a massive shockwave. Kai sighed heavily, clearly bored by the pathetic display. He taunted the weak grasshopper, questioning its absolute limit. Deciding to end it, Kai prepared a special technique. He flawlessly executed his ultimate sword technique's first form. A blinding slash brutally bisected the terrifying monster entirely. Kai sheathed his weapon, calling the dead beast disappointing. His status window proved that killing enemies enhanced stats. Kai ventured much deeper into the massive underground labyrinth. Reaching the 9th floor, he found the weak enemies pathetic. He marveled at the ridiculously wide and expanding dungeon. Checking his inventory, he noticed his bug supply dwindling. He briefly considered using magic to return surface level. Refusing retreat, he disgustedly chewed on a toxic bug. A massive, heavy stone gateway suddenly opened before him. Kai gasped as a new terrifying threat finally emerged. He immediately recognized the massive creature as a killer hornet. The system officially initiated his first major 10th floor trial. Kai deduced that powerful bosses guarded every 10th floor. Thrilled, he eagerly welcomed the arrival of a worthy foe. He maniacally challenged the giant beast to a deathmatch. Suddenly, utter confusion completely paralyzed Kai's battle momentum. An invisible blinding strike cleanly severed his entire arm. Blood exploded violently from his newly amputated shoulder socket. Staring at his bleeding stump, Kai praised the attack. He laughed maniacally, absolutely delighted by the spectacular pain. Kai smiled wickedly, deciding this kill would be truly worth savoring. The giant insect instantly vanished from sight, moving at incredible, blistering speeds. The hornet suddenly launched a terrifying, high-speed ambush from the dark shadows. Kai calmly noted its extreme speed while analyzing the highly predictable linear attack pattern. He realized the creature practically telegraphed its strikes by trembling right before charging. Kai paused entirely as the desperate beast prepared a dangerous hidden trump card. The beast menacingly reared back, charging toxic energy for a devastating ranged strike. Recognizing the threat, Kai prepared for an incoming ranged poisonous assault. A massive barrage of deadly toxic needles rained down continuously from directly above. Unfazed, Kai smoothly shifted into the third form of his legendary sword technique. He perfectly executed the flawless mirror technique to completely counter the deadly strike. His impossibly fast blade seamlessly deflected every single toxic projectile back toward the beast. Kai confidently stated that weak ranged attacks had absolutely no effect on him. Smiling coldly, he ruthlessly promised to return the painful favor in full. Noting the corrosive poison splashing harmlessly, he watched the creature suffer its own attack. Despite melting violently, the crippled beast desperately lunged for one final heroic strike. Kai praised the insect's fierce warrior pride as it continued its deeply doomed assault. Respecting his brave foe, Kai unleashed the blinding second form lightning strike. A single, devastating flash of pure kinetic energy instantly decapitated the giant hornet. He stated that using his fastest technique was the ultimate sign of warrior respect. Sheathing his weapon peacefully, Kai gently ordered the fallen warrior to finally rest. A system notification suddenly chimed, confirming the killer hornet was defeated and the first trial was cleared. A soft beep echoed through the silent chamber as Kai wondered what his mysterious reward could be. A heavy thud shattered the quiet atmosphere as a solid object materialized on the cold stone floor. Kai tilted his head in sheer curiosity as he observed the classic wooden treasure chest. The system displayed an advanced tier flame sword known as a flamberge that ignited targets on contact. Kai read the magical description, analyzing how the blade utilized ambient magic to set enemies ablaze. He casually tossed the magical sword upward, initially finding the flaming weapon rather underwhelming. He realized he hardly needed new weapons since his trusty indestructible stick was already perfectly sufficient. Kai stared blankly at the glowing blade, falling deep into silent contemplation. A brilliant idea suddenly struck him, realizing he could use the flaming sword to properly roast those disgusting toxic bugs. Thrilled by his incredibly lucky culinary find, he eagerly prepared to test his cooking theory on the upcoming floor. Marching forward with newfound confidence, Kai confidently approached the massive gateway for his next grand trial. The heavy stone doors slowly rumbled open, revealing an entirely new and dangerous environment. A blindingly intense light violently erupted from the freshly opened corridor, forcing him to shield his eyes. Kai stared in absolute disbelief at the sprawling, bubbling lava field completely covering the floor ahead. Smiling fiercely at the deadly trap, he proudly declared this blistering inferno was exactly the kind of trial he expected. He quickly realized he could not step forward and internally wished he possessed heat-resistant shoes. The sudden thought of building natural resistance sparked a wildly dangerous and painful idea in his mind. Noting a convenient teleportation circle nearby, he eagerly decided to perform a highly painful physical experiment. He loudly commanded his magical item box to securely store his protective escape shoes away. A blistering wave of intense heat violently rushed up to singe his newly exposed bare foot. Kai bravely thrust his unprotected foot directly toward the glowing, bubbling surface of the scorching magma. He screamed in absolute agony as the horrific heat instantly burned his exposed flesh. Retreating rapidly, he frantically chugged his miraculous healing elixir while cursing his inability to endure it longer. A heavy sizzle echoed through the cavern as his magically healed body prepared for another brutal immersion. Kai proudly noted he could now easily withstand the searing heat for 10 full seconds while preparing additional elixirs. A glowing system notification chimed brightly, confirming he successfully acquired the lesser heat-resistant skill. He enthusiastically vowed to push straight through the pain until he achieved complete heat absorption, relying entirely on his unlimited elixirs. Fueled by pure adrenaline and reckless determination, Kai aggressively charged straight ahead into the blistering inferno. A rapid montage revealed Kai flawlessly surviving blazing magma, freezing blizzards, scorching deserts, deep floods, razor winds, and blinding lightning strikes across hundreds of floors. A holographic screen displayed his massive, fully upgraded list of powerful elemental resistance skills upon reaching the 300th floor. Slumping down in total exhaustion, Kai confidently declared that he finally felt completely invincible against any dangerous environment. Panting heavily, he forced his battered body back up and slowly moved toward the next challenging floor. He paused briefly to inspect a pair of rare Thunder Beast gloves that he carelessly used as a simple sweat towel earlier. A sudden deafening roar echoed through the massive cavern as he spotted a wide staircase leading further down into the darkness. A terrifying surge of raw, crackling electricity violently surged across the cracked stone floor. The massive Thunder Tiger King furiously roared, unleashing an absolute storm of devastating lightning energy. The system formally initiated the final trial of the upper levels, demanding the absolute defeat of the Thunder Tiger King. The colossal electrical beast lunged violently forward with unmatched feral ferocity. Kai tightly gripped his legendary flaming sword, completely prepared to clash with the towering lightning monster. Kai unleashed the ultimate brink of death technique against the weak monster. The system confirmed the Thunder Tiger King's defeat while a stuttering voice suddenly interrupted. An absolutely enormous shadowy fish monster lunged unexpectedly from the dark depths below. The system announced a special bonus reward for officially defeating the electric tiger. Smirking confidently, Kai welcomed the massive new challenger as a much more promising opponent. The colossal aquatic beast violently clamped its massive jaws directly onto Kai. A massive splash erupted as the giant fish dragged Kai beneath the water. Bubbles violently surged as Kai fiercely struggled against the beast underwater. A brilliant slash of pure energy suddenly burst through the monster's scaly hide. Kai effortlessly sliced the massive creature apart from the inside out. Bloody bubbles floated upward as the bisected aquatic beast sank completely lifeless. Bursting through the water's surface, Kai excitedly cheered after the incredible fight. He happily noted getting slightly tangled during his very first underwater battle. Staring up the steep cliff, he realized climbing back would be difficult. The stuttering system nervously announced the upper floors were cleared alongside rare bonuses. Kai demanded the strange voice shut up, noticing its highly unusual stuttering tone. He smiled upon discovering a super rare treasure chest hidden inside the fish. Unsure which was rare, he eagerly opened the smaller treasure box first. He curiously examined an introductory magic tome resting silently inside the chest. Wondering if his incompetent skill allowed magic, he safely stored the book away. Kai quickly turned his eager attention toward the second mysterious reward box. He gasped in absolute awe upon discovering a beautifully crafted sword. The system identified the legendary twin-blade Raikiri, capable of severing lightning itself. Kai reverently gripped the magnificent legendary katana tightly in his hands. He marveled at how perfectly natural the legendary weapon felt to hold. He realized the comfortable grip perfectly matched his old dojo's wooden swords. Kai eagerly swung the legendary blade, testing its incredible balance and weight. A bright, confident smirk stretched broadly across his battle-hardened face. He proudly declared the legendary Raikiri blade would become his new partner. Time flashed forward to 7,612 years since Kai initially started the game. Standing before massive stone doors, Kai prepared for his next grand challenge. He smirked knowingly, realizing he had finally entered the dangerous dragon zone. A massive dragon roared fiercely, providing the perfect opportunity to test Raikiri. Kai dashed forward with blinding speed, completely overwhelming the towering dragon. He launched a devastating aerial assault against the massive reptilian beast. Kai enthusiastically praised the marvelous blade for perfectly harmonizing with his swordsmanship. He descended into the 350th floor, arriving in a glowing crystal cavern. He calmly noted the new dragon opponent appeared unusually small in size. Despite its size, the beast's intense eyes exuded an incredibly immense pressure. The quirky system initiated the 8th trial against the golden dragon Fafnir. Kai roared with absolute excitement, demanding a soul-boiling showdown. He challenged the mighty golden dragon to a brutal duel to the bitter end. The dragon instantly unleashed a devastatingly powerful blast that completely overwhelmed Kai. Battered and broken, Kai could only let out a weak, raspy laugh. His quiet chuckles quickly erupted into full, uncontrollable laughter at the absolute absurdity. He lay completely motionless on the cold floor, soaking in his brutal defeat. His ruined body slowly began the agonizing process of healing itself once again. Pushing through the intense pain, Kai finally managed to sit upright. He humbly admitted that he had suffered a completely crushing and absolute defeat. Smiling eagerly, he vowed to defeat the beast that completely nullified his sword slashes. Kai safely returned to the sanctuary of the ground floor to recover fully. Stopping his severe bleeding, he shuddered at the unnatural sensation of his regenerating flesh. Despite his painful recovery, his mind immediately began racing for a new winning strategy. He realized he needed non-physical attacks to bypass the dragon's absolute physical nullification. Kai stared blankly ahead, deeply pondering what alternative methods he could possibly use. A brilliant realization struck him as he considered using magic as his ultimate weapon. He immediately opened his item box, remembering the magic tomes he previously won. Kai frantically searched his digital inventory for any useful magical spell books. Overwhelmed by countless results, he wisely selected the basic introduction to magic tome. The book strictly warned that forcefully reading without a magical contract risked brain death. Placing his hand on the glowing book, Kai bravely attempted to forge a contract. He sighed in frustration, realizing his incompetent gift completely prevented any official magical contracts. With infinite time, he recklessly decided to read the lethal text directly despite the immense danger. Kai greedily chugged his miraculous elixir to combat the intense magical pain. A terrifying snap in his mind forced him to cry out in sheer agony. A system prompt confirmed he acquired magic poison resistance to decipher ancient texts safely. Realizing his headaches stemmed from magic intoxication, he confidently noted deciphering was finally doable. 7,673 years slowly passed since his entrapment initially began. After 60 grueling years of intense study, Kai finally grasped fundamental ancient magic concepts. He realized magical power was divided into general elemental attributes and unique special categories. Kai understood acquiring general magic required innate talent, making it impossible for his gift. Fortunately, non-attribute magic merely involved imbuing organic matter or objects with raw magical energy. Clenching his fists triumphantly, he realized he could master this magic without innate talent. Pure excitement washed over him as his potential to grow stronger became truly limitless. By 8,167 years, his physical recovery required more time. Reviewing ancient medical literature sparked a brilliant theory regarding the human body's cellular structure. He deduced specifying non-attribute magic at the cellular level could vastly improve body reinforcement. This advanced manipulation theoretically allowed him to unleash devastating pseudo-remote magical attacks from afar. His magical studies were abruptly interrupted as a newly spawned monster emerged nearby. Kai smirked warmly, thanking the dungeon system for constantly supplying fresh, living practice dummies. He calmly commanded his internal magical energy to seamlessly flow throughout his entire body. Activating non-attribute magic, he flawlessly executed a supreme reinforcement technique called adamantine strength. The towering beast lunged forward, unleashing a massive physical strike against the reinforced warrior. A heavy shockwave shattered the ground, yet Kai stood perfectly unfazed by the impact. He proudly noted that pathetic physical pressure could no longer trigger his ultra-regeneration. Drawing his legendary katana with a sharp clang, he eagerly prepared his next theory. The enraged monster roared fiercely, gathering immense kinetic energy for a secondary devastating assault. Channeling surging mana into his blade, Kai confidently activated the demonic armament reinforcement spell. The legendary Raikiri hummed violently as pure non-attribute magic completely enveloped its steel edge. Infusing the weapon molecularly bypassed the dragon's physical immunity by transforming it into magic. Apologizing mockingly, Kai warned the beast it would taste the blade designed for Fafnir. He violently dashed forward with explosive speed, fully intent on obliterating the massive target. A blinding flash of kinetic energy erupted as Kai flawlessly swung his enhanced blade. The terrifying demonic armament smoothly carved straight through the dragon's supposedly impenetrable scales. A massive explosion of pure force violently ripped the towering monster completely in half. The beast's severed body instantly began dissolving into glowing particles of dissipating magical dust. Staring at the remains, Kai realized ordinary dragons were too weak for proper practice. He activated the Divine Eye spell, mapping every monster within a 500-meter radius. His magical radar detected two newly spawned monsters with pathetically low overall power levels. He deactivated his glowing blade, deciding it was an absolute waste to use demonic armament. Shifting his strategic focus, Kai decided to actively advance a completely different combat technique. 11,065 unimaginably long years officially passed since Kai entered the dungeon. He stood silently underground, completely ready to continue his endless pursuit of absolute perfection. A system notification abruptly announced the acquisition of the ultimate stage Kairyu throwing technique. Confidently stepping forward, Kai noted he had finally perfected his long-range attacks and earned the Dragon Slayer title. Having done everything in his power to prepare, the fierce warrior boldly left his survival entirely up to fate. He meticulously reviewed his massively upgraded status screen to confirm his incredible thousands of years of progress. The invisible system voice excitedly taunted Kai by declaring the physically immune dragon Fafnir completely unbeatable. Ignoring the taunts, Kai confidently prepared to resume the interrupted 8th trial and destroy his massive target. A towering golden dragon suddenly emerged from the shadowy abyss, radiating immense and terrifying pressure. Staring intently at the beast, Kai menacingly whispered how deeply he longed to face those irresistible eyes again. A manic grin stretched across his face as he eagerly anticipated witnessing his glorious victory. He obsessively confessed that his burning desire to defeat the beast had morphed into a twisted, 3,000-year passion. Gripping his legendary blade tightly, the warrior fully immersed himself in a terrifying, battle-crazed aura. The colossal golden dragon Fafnir roared fiercely, completely shaking the massive underground stone cavern. Unfazed by the deafening roar, Kai locked his deadly, piercing gaze directly onto his towering prey. Blinding magical energy violently surged around him as he seamlessly drew his legendary katana for the decisive strike. An unsettling, maniacal laughter continuously spilled from the battle-crazed warrior's lips as he approached. Pointing his glowing weapon forward, Kai proudly declared he had achieved this supreme power exclusively to defeat Fafnir. He revealed a completely new magical enchantment specifically engineered to mercilessly rip the dragon apart. Kai obsessively detailed how he spent countless days dreaming solely of fighting the magnificent golden dragon. He admitted nearly losing his mind from the intense, burning anticipation of this violently awaited encounter. Salivating for battle, Kai demanded the beast show him a dazzling and honorable fight to the bitter end. Exploding with feral battle lust, the fierce warrior roared for them to finally kill each other with absolute honor. The massive, terrifying golden dragon unexpectedly bowed its head completely flat and loudly surrendered. Kai froze entirely mid-charge, completely paralyzed by the sudden and absolute anticlimax of the situation. He let out a confused gasp, utterly struggling to process the giant monster's cowardly declaration. Dropping his intense aura, Kai frantically screamed in total denial over the dragon's pathetic surrender. Even the system voice desperately urged the dragon to fight while Kai hysterically pointed out they had not even clashed yet. Kai tearfully complained about spending centuries preparing his ultimate enchantment, begging the beast to at least try fighting. The trembling dragon quietly wept as Kai furiously screamed about his 3,000 years of dedicated magical research. The warrior aggressively snapped his fingers in pure, unfiltered frustration over his entirely wasted efforts. A depressed system notification formally confirmed the 8th trial was cleared due to the dragon's instantaneous surrender. Kai angrily berated the mysterious system voice, furiously demanding to know if there was any other alternative to this pathetic victory. The system sighed heavily, offering a special completion reward with an incredibly half-hearted tone. A glowing holographic prompt suddenly materialized directly in front of the highly disappointed warrior. The system cheerfully announced that Fafnir wanted to join his party, offering a simple yes or no option. Kai stared blankly at the colossal, terrifying beast currently trembling pathetically like a frightened puppy. The massive golden dragon continued to shiver uncontrollably under the warrior's intense, judging gaze. Sweating nervously, Kai openly doubted the system's claim that the terrified beast actually wanted to join him. He correctly pointed out that navigating the dungeon with such an unfathomably massive companion would be physically impossible. Rationalizing the bizarre dungeon logic, Kai assumed the creature could probably adapt its size magically to fit inside. He also realized the intelligent golden dragon was fully capable of speaking the human language perfectly. Kai sadly admitted that spending 10,000 years completely alone made him desperate enough to crave any form of companionship. Resigning himself to the absurd situation, Kai firmly tapped the positive confirmation button on the floating interface. The massive golden dragon suddenly squeezed its eyes shut and let out a strained, magical grunt. Kai watched in pure awe as Fafnir's colossal body began glowing brilliantly while actively shrinking in overall size. A blinding sphere of golden magical energy completely enveloped the rapidly compressing dragon. Shielding his eyes from the intense light, Kai noted the creature was becoming remarkably small very quickly. The bright magical glow finally faded away entirely, revealing a tiny, hovering silhouette in the air. A tiny, cheerful voice enthusiastically greeted Kai, loudly declaring itself as Fafnir the Golden Dragon. Kai stood completely dumbfounded, staring silently at the incredibly tiny creature now floating before him. Sweating awkwardly, the bewildered warrior asked if his new legendary companion was perhaps a little too small. Kai stood silently, admiring the feel of his freshly acquired equipment. He proudly posed in the darkness, testing the flexibility of his armor. The system officially rewarded him with a legendary dragon cloak and boots. Kai felt deeply grateful for the sturdy new clothes replacing his ruined rags. A cheerful voice called out as little Fafnir floated toward her master. The tiny dragon disgustedly held up his old tattered clothes and offered to burn them. Kai quickly saved the rags as a nostalgic memento of his harsh training. He locked the ruined garments in his infinite inventory to prevent accidental disposal. Excitedly, Kai invited Fafnir back to the ground floor to show her a surprise. They safely arrived back at the tranquil first floor of the massive labyrinth. Kai proudly unveiled a cozy campsite built entirely from scavenged dungeon materials. He promised the grumbling dragon a delicious meal to wipe away her disgusted expression. Revealing a massive slab of marbled beef, Kai proudly displayed his prime ingredients. He chuckled darkly, building intense suspense over his grand culinary plans. Annoyed by the dramatic buildup, Fafnir threatened to snap at her master's terrible attitude. Kai dramatically unsheathed the ancient flame sword Flamberge he found long ago. He gleefully noted that the useless battle weapon finally had a true purpose. Taking a firm stance, the warrior prepared to unleash his culinary strike. Kai roared his secret Kairyu cooking technique with absolute blinding speed. A massive wave of fire instantly engulfed the thick slab of raw monster beef. He proudly declared the meat perfectly grilled by his ultimate flaming sword technique. Fafnir cheered as Kai boasted about spending 10 years perfecting the searing color. Kai happily granted the drooling little dragon permission to finally eat. He smugly explained how he painstakingly harvested custom seasoning from deep underground seawater. Fafnir eagerly devoured the massive steak with incredibly loud, messy crunching sounds. Kai frantically screamed as the greedy dragon aggressively bit his hand instead of the steak. The tiny dragon stubbornly refused to let go of her master's bleeding hand. Chugging an elixir, Kai sighed but felt genuinely glad Fafnir enjoyed the meal. Kai happily took a massive bite of the perfectly grilled monster meat. Warmth flooded his exhausted body as he chewed the delicious, tender steak. A bright, genuine smile stretched across the weary warrior's face for the first time. Fafnir beamed with absolute joy, fully satisfied by the incredible feast. They sat peacefully together, sharing a quiet moment in the heart of the dungeon. The warm campfire crackled softly, illuminating their cozy underground sanctuary. Kai closed his eyes, savoring the profound comfort of a shared meal. The vast, empty dungeon suddenly felt much less lonely and cold. Kai realized this ordinary meal felt miraculously delicious after 10,000 years of complete isolation. His agonizing obsession with absolute power quietly melted away, restoring his missing humanity. The blinding thirst for blood he once felt toward Fafnir completely vanished. He stared thoughtfully at the tiny dragon, fully embracing his reclaimed sanity. Kai happily realized their new mutually beneficial relationship was his true ultimate reward. Time skipped forward 13,000 years as they reached the 400th underground floor. A colossal, heavily armored beast aggressively blocked their path in the deep darkness. Fafnir eagerly pointed out the creature's long nose, while Kai identified it as an elephant. The massive beast sneered menacingly, completely underestimating the tiny intruders before it. The giant mockingly praised Kai for reaching this deep level as a fledgling god. It proudly introduced itself as Jiramekala, a true and absolute evil god. Unfazed, Kai casually asked Fafnir what she thought about the arrogant beast's grand title. Ignoring the god entirely, Kai casually asked if Fafnir finished eating her steak. Fafnir happily chewed her food, completely ignoring the towering evil god standing before them. A tense silence fell as the true, evil god Jiramekala stared down its tiny opponents. Fafnir angrily screamed she would violently beat the arrogant beast into absolute submission. Kai frantically waved his hands, demanding Fafnir hold back her violent urges. Kai realized he needed to set a peaceful example before Fafnir completely snapped. He calmly warned the evil god that carelessly throwing away its life was extremely foolish. Kai firmly offered to completely let the evil god go if it simply surrendered right now. Jiramekala completely froze, utterly stunned by the incredibly arrogant demand. Kai peacefully clarified he genuinely hated killing and would spare anything that did not harm him. Trembling with pure absolute rage, the evil god violently roared at the insolent human. Jiramekala furiously proclaimed itself the Supreme Creator's greatest and most trusted servant. The giant beast proudly boasted its high divine rank guaranteed its eventual ascension to the absolute throne. Raging wildly, Jiramekala declared Kai's demand to surrender an unforgivable cosmic insult. Before the god finished ranting, Kai smoothly flicked a single wooden stick forward. The incredibly fast projectile shot cleanly toward the massive, ranting beast. A devastating explosion instantly obliterated the evil god's entire upper half. Lowering his hand calmly, Kai sighed that the beast's rant was both long-winded and annoying. He casually noted the evil god would have survived if it simply offered a short refusal. He complained that Small Fry always acted incredibly pompous right before dying. Fafnir cheered happily, completely amazed by her master's instantaneous annihilation. Kai quickly tried to explain that instantly killing everything was absolutely not the correct lesson. Realizing Fafnir completely missed the peaceful point, Kai gave up and offered to grill her more meat. A glowing system notification suddenly triggered an incredible new achievement. Kai received the Transcendental Rank Subjugation Encyclopedia, capable of summoning defeated monster souls. He stared in absolute disbelief, realizing the pathetic evil god was actually a true floor boss. The glowing magical encyclopedia began projecting a new system notification onto the screen. The system asked if Kai wanted to officially save Jiramekala's soul inside the magical encyclopedia. Kai silently pondered the unexpected option hovering directly before his eyes. Fafnir aggressively lunged forward, eagerly attempting to push the glowing button herself. Kai frantically held the little dragon back, strictly ordering her not to push buttons independently. Defying her master, Fafnir happily smashed the negative confirmation button instead. Kai cried out in absolute shock as the system immediately accepted Fafnir's input. The magical book rapidly updated its internal database with chaotic, glitching magical text. Kai realized this incredibly powerful book perfectly allowed him to summon any defeated monsters. He decided to test the encyclopedia, secretly planning to complete the entire book from floor 1. Ignoring his grand plans entirely, a very hungry Fafnir loudly demanded more food. The two companions immediately teleported back to the peaceful sanctuary of the ground floor. Kai confidently announced his plan to immediately summon the recently captured Jiramekala. Fafnir curiously asked if he meant the incredibly weak, long-nosed monster they just easily defeated. She excitedly recalled how her powerful master completely and utterly annihilated the beast. Kai gently corrected her, firmly reminding the violent dragon that he preferred peaceful subjugation. He prepared himself to test the absolute power of his newest magical treasure. Using his official name, Kai firmly commanded the subjugation encyclopedia to release Jiramekala. The ancient magical tome began humming with immense, surging mystical energy. Brilliant light completely engulfed the pages as the summoning spell fully activated. A massive summoning circle violently erupted directly across the cold stone floor. The blinding magical light completely faded away, fully revealing the summoned beast. A tiny, completely shrunk Jiramekala stared around in absolute, utter confusion. The tiny elephant beast angrily pointed at Kai, immediately recognizing the fledgling god who killed him. Kai confidently ordered his newly captured soul to serve him as a loyal subordinate. Infuriated, the tiny evil god furiously completely refused to ever serve a lowly human. Kai sighed deeply, clearly disappointed by the tiny beast's incredibly persistent disobedience. He menacingly gripped his legendary indestructible stick tightly in his right hand. Kai coldly promised the tiny beast would quickly learn obedience after experiencing death 10,000 times. 51,000 years slowly passed since the grueling survival game initially began. A loud, rumbling snore echoed heavily through the dark and quiet stone cavern. Kai furiously kicked his sleeping subordinate awake with a sudden, deafening shout. Startled awake, Jiramekala frantically saluted and screamed a panicked good morning to his master. Kai brutally smashed the massive elephant monster face-first into the ground for responding far too slowly. Pinning the beast down, Kai strictly reminded him that subordinate salutes must always precede his own greetings. Jiramekala desperately proclaimed himself a worthless, bottom-tier bug crawling on the ground to quickly appease his fierce master. Fafnir sleepily floated into the chaotic room, cheerfully wishing everyone a very good morning. Trembling in absolute terror, Jiramekala immediately saluted the tiny dragon as a fellow worthless bug. Kai violently smashed the elephant beast into the floor a second time for his incredibly sluggish reaction speed. The fierce warrior furiously reprimanded the groveling beast for daring to use vulgar, self-deprecating language directly in front of Fafnir. Fafnir cheerfully adopted the bizarre bug greeting, much to Kai's absolute and utter horror. Kai immediately dropped to his knees in sheer panic, frantically activating his apology mode to match the bizarre bug-themed greetings. Snapping back to total authority, Kai ruthlessly ordered Jiramekala to perform 500,000 push-ups as immediate punishment before breakfast. An agonizing hour later, the thoroughly exhausted elephant beast collapsed completely while violently gasping for air. Kai announced their upcoming expedition to fill the encyclopedia while casually dismissing the exhausted beast's brutal physical efforts. Pulling out a mysterious new piece of equipment, Kai eagerly mentioned testing their latest magical acquisition. Fafnir curiously asked if the item was another power-up, but Kai flatly denied the logical assumption. Kai proudly presented the divine seal gloves, explaining that they intentionally handicapped his overwhelming power at will. Laughing maniacally, Kai explained that barely surviving brutal near-death fights with severely weakened stats would slightly increase his base power. Before departing for the lower levels, Kai strictly ordered Jiramekala to clean the house and restock Fafnir's massive food supply. Exactly 65,000 years after initially entering the game, Kai descended deep into the grueling 700th underground floor. Kai and Fafnir surveyed the completely barren landscape resting silently beneath an ominous, blood-red sky. Ignoring the 200-degree lethal heat, Kai casually spotted a mysterious, imposing boss-like figure waiting in the distance. A massive, fiery bird radiating immense destructive heat stood proudly in the very center of the scorching wasteland. The towering beast peered down arrogantly, mockingly praising the unknown human for managing to survive this incredibly far. Kai silently stared back at the highly arrogant avian monster towering aggressively above him. Kai internally panicked, suddenly realizing his stat-lowering gloves completely disabled his ability to gauge the enemy's true combat strength. Previously, merely facing a powerful opponent allowed the seasoned warrior to instantly estimate their exact threat rank. He nervously pondered how high-ranking monsters expertly hid their murderous intent so deeply that they felt practically non-existent. Kai debated removing the restrictive gloves but deeply feared accidentally killing a weakling instantly and wasting precious experience points. Seeking a reliable second opinion, Kai casually asked Fafnir to thoroughly analyze the giant fiery bird. Fafnir stared completely blankly at the massive, flaming creature while drooling slightly from her mouth. The tiny dragon boldly declared the monster looked absolutely delicious, prompting Kai to sigh heavily at her highly predictable response. Kai quickly clarified he meant its overall combat strength, not its potential as a perfectly roasted chicken dinner. He gently scolded Fafnir for acting so greedy about food, insisting a proper lady should display much better manners. Kai bluntly insulted the majestic creature to its face, casually referring to it as a freakish bird monster. Enraged by the blatant disrespect, the fiery bird violently snapped at Kai and cursed him as a bastard. Kai quickly held up his hands, lazily attempting to walk back the highly insulting comment. Stuttering awkwardly, Kai accidentally insulted it entirely further by suggesting it was simply a freakish food ingredient. The divine phoenix screeched in pure, unadulterated fury, vowing to never forgive such gross disrespect toward a deity. An intensely terrifying aura of explosive flames violently erupted around the highly enraged avian god. The divine phoenix Kornav commanded its surrounding fiery forces to completely and ruthlessly engage the disrespectful intruders. Fafnir eagerly volunteered to fight the flaming bird, though Kai correctly deduced she merely wanted to eat the massive beast. As the dungeon system formally initiated the phoenix trial, Kai sighed heavily and casually chugged a healing elixir. Kornav furiously mocked the tiny intruders, labeling them as irredeemable fools for daring to challenge a literal fire deity. The fiery bird launched a devastating wave of purging flames designed to completely incinerate the blasphemous challengers into ash. A blinding vortex of absolute hellfire violently consumed the entire barren battlefield in a matter of seconds. Bursting straight through the fiery inferno unharmed, Kai smoothly launched a blindingly fast physical counterattack. Startled by the sudden and impossible strike, the divine phoenix desperately screamed for the arrogant human not to underestimate Kornav. The intense battle immediately kicked off as the fighters prepared to strike. A massive cataclysmic upheaval violently tore the desolate battlefield completely apart. A devastating lion sky slash ripped through the air with absolute blinding ferocity. The explosive impact sent massive shockwaves rippling across the scorching wasteland. Dust completely engulfed the fierce combatants as they braced against the sheer destructive force. Screaming with intense effort, the desperate warrior braced himself for one final brutal hit. A blinding flash of pure kinetic energy signaled the ultimate devastating strike. The massive fiery bird reeled backward from the sheer, overwhelming force of the impact. Plumes of thick smoke slowly cleared to reveal the intense aftermath of the clash. The colossal beast struggled wildly to maintain its dominant footing amidst the ruins. Kai stood completely unfazed amidst the overwhelming and absolute destruction. The battlefield fell into a tense, heavy silence as the dust finally settled. Fafnir cheerfully praised her master for finally saying the special move's name correctly, prompting Kai to question her bizarre priorities. Drawing his fiery weapon, Kai enthusiastically announced it was Flamberge time while preparing to cook his massive prey. Fafnir excitedly demanded the thigh meat as Kai confidently prepared to properly roast the giant bird. A massive explosive boom shattered the area as raw fiery energy completely engulfed the defeated beast. Kai noted the considerate monster was spontaneously burning on its own, making itself even tastier for them. Fafnir proudly claimed she finished it off, but Kai nervously realized the fiery beast was actually regenerating. The surrounding flames surged violently as the creature's mangled form rapidly began stitching itself back together. The arrogant bird god declared itself the immortal ruler of life and death, entirely capable of resurrecting from countless defeats. Annoyed by the creature's boast, Fafnir eagerly volunteered to violently crush the bird all over again. A dark, menacing chuckle slowly escaped Kai's lips as his intense battle-crazed aura violently flared. Kai menacingly praised the immortal bird, thrilled to face an opponent that could supposedly never die. His blood boiling with pure thrill, the fierce warrior prepared to brutally test the absolute limits of the bird's immortality. Kai aggressively outlined an intense plan to continuously battle the beast until it turned to dust while Fafnir eagerly cheered him on. The immortal bird stared in absolute utter terror at the completely unhinged human standing before it. Kai surged forward with blinding, godlike speed, instantly launching his relentless and brutal barrage. The panicked phoenix desperately tried to comprehend the devastating blur of sheer power tearing its immortal body apart. The system cheerfully congratulated Kai for completely defeating the phoenix after he diced it into tiny bite-sized chunks. Kai stood completely dumbfounded, demanding the supposedly immortal bird resurrect itself immediately. Absolute disappointment crushed his battle-crazed spirit as he realized the pathetic god was permanently dead. The system heartlessly prompted him to add the phoenix's soul to his encyclopedia, prompting Kai to furiously snap. Kai screamed in pure, unadulterated frustration over the completely pathetic and anticlimactic victory. He violently cursed the gutless monster bird, screaming that an immortal being should have lasted at least 10 years. The warrior kicked the roasted chunks of meat in pure absolute frustration and sheer disappointment. Taking a deep breath, Kai forcibly calmed his raging fury to avoid frightening his tiny companion. Kai quickly pivoted, gently explaining to Fafnir that using such aggressive language was absolutely not acceptable. He frantically backpedaled, transparently lying that his furious cursing was just a deliberate educational example for her. Fafnir wisely scolded her master, proudly reminding him that true ladies must never behave so poorly. Sweating awkwardly, Kai asked if she fully understood the highly hypocritical lesson he just delivered. Fafnir happily agreed while casually insulting him as a completely crappy master. Kai stood completely frozen, utterly destroyed by his adopted daughter's savage and innocent disrespect. He desperately attempted to correct her phrasing, begging her not to combine understanding with vicious insults. Accepting his classic bad parenting, Kai gently patted her head and praised her for being a good girl. Sighing that parenting was incredibly hard, Kai announced they were heading back home to the worthless bugs. The two unlikely companions smoothly teleported away from the barren and scorching wasteland. Fafnir was actually a divine dragon with absolute godlike status, though she had completely forgotten why she guarded this labyrinth. Long ago, someone precious had tasked her with guarding the labyrinth and left her with deeply important words. For an unimaginably long time, the lonely dragon waited in the golden labyrinth for a worthy challenger to finally arrive. That fateful moment finally arrived the exact day her incredible master stepped into her isolated domain. A massive magical barrier designed to withstand any normal physical attack completely failed. Fafnir initially felt deeply terrified of her incredibly powerful and destructive new master. The tiny dragon recalled a precious memory of someone promising a savior would arrive. Her entire existence fundamentally shifted the exact moment she became Kai's companion. Fafnir quickly realized her master was incredibly kind and possessed amazing culinary skills. Surrounded by good food, gentle head pats, and genuine companionship, she finally forgot her profound loneliness. Fafnir and Kai became utterly inseparable, forming an incredibly deep and adoring bond. The duo fearlessly adventured together across the massive and dangerous underground labyrinth. They consistently trained together, fiercely honing their combat skills in perfect unison. Quiet moments were spent peacefully reading books together in the dim dungeon light. The deeply bonded pair even slept peacefully side by side every single night. Fafnir cheerfully demanded more delicious food while happily floating around her master. Kai smiled warmly, genuinely glad his adopted daughter enjoyed the hearty breakfast meal. Kai affectionately thanked Fafnir, crediting her massive appetite for drastically improving his cooking skills. Fafnir playfully complained when Kai packed lunch away, eager to keep eating breakfast forever. The massive elephant beast Juramekola respectfully bowed his heavy head in greeting. The loyal subordinate formally delivered his morning report to his master. Juramekola proudly announced that 2 new powerful retainers officially joined the Kai army. The new monsters bowed deeply, completely honored to serve under their incredibly powerful new master. Kai calmly issued strict orders for the subordinates to prepare dinner ingredients and a warm bath. The loyal monsters enthusiastically saluted, proudly accepting their master's firm commands. Fafnir swelled with immense pride seeing her master so deeply respected by the powerful monsters. Fafnir happily cheered as they secured another flawless victory inside the treacherous dungeon. She eagerly praised Kai for completely annihilating the towering monster with a single strike. Splashing happily in the dungeon water, Fafnir suddenly noticed Kai standing completely frozen. Kai stared blankly ahead, his eyes completely hollow and utterly devoid of life. Fafnir nervously called out to him, deeply unsettled by his sudden and eerie silence. Snapping back to reality, Kai forced a smile and agreed they easily secured another one-hit victory. He smoothly deflected his strange behavior by casually apologizing that the defeated monster was completely inedible. Despite his forced smiles, Fafnir clearly sensed the profound loneliness deeply hidden within her master. Fafnir quietly woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. She groggily looked over toward the bed they typically shared every single night. Panic instantly flared in her chest when she realized her master's bed was completely empty. Terrified of abandonment, the frantic little dragon desperately searched the dark campsite for her master. Kai stared silently out into the dark void, softly whispering the name Lila to the empty abyss. He stood completely motionless on the balcony, drowning entirely in his deep, melancholic thoughts. He leaned heavily against the wooden railing, gazing blankly into the unseen, dark expanse beyond the labyrinth. Fafnir watched silently, recognizing the same profoundly lonely expression she saw earlier in the dungeon. She silently observed her master quietly calling out to an unknown, deeply cherished person from his past. Fafnir wept silently, utterly terrified that her beloved master was slowly slipping away into a distant world. Kai softly closed his eyes, completely lost within the painful memories of his distant past. Startled by a quiet noise, Kai turned and gently called out his adopted daughter's name. Fafnir instantly burst into loud, uncontrollable tears, clinging desperately to her deeply confused master. Kai gently comforted the weeping dragon, assuming she simply suffered a terrifying nightmare. Cradling the sobbing dragon, Kai softly suggested they return to bed before their upcoming expedition. Fafnir hesitantly called out to him, her tiny voice trembling with deep, unresolved anxiety. She desperately asked if he would truly stay with her forever. Kai immediately assured her that he would never leave her all alone. Fafnir frantically demanded a completely absolute and unbreakable confirmation of his promise. Kai gently but firmly promised her that he was absolutely serious. He softly reminded Fafnir of his strict teaching that he never lies to anyone. They mutually confirmed that neither of them had ever lied to the other. Kai sincerely promised that he only ever spoke the absolute truth to her. He stared deeply into her eyes, ensuring she completely understood the weight of his words. He softly swore a binding promise that they would always remain together forever. Fafnir smiled brightly through her tears, deeply overwhelmed by her immense love for her master. They softly promised each other that their bond would truly last forever. Comforted by his absolute promise, Fafnir peacefully drifted to sleep, desperately hoping their happiness would remain eternal. A system prompt congratulated him for clearing the trial of the gods. Water splashed violently around his battered, completely exhausted body. The system announced his memories would forcibly reconnect before the trial. Blinding magical light violently engulfed his entire field of vision. Reality distorted violently as his consciousness slammed back into his original body. Kai Heinemann suddenly recalled finding himself journeying toward the royal capital. Pursued by mysterious beasts and a red-haired man, he stumbled into the deadly trial. Fortunately, time froze completely, leaving him trapped until he cleared the dungeon. He fought horrific monsters while forging powerful, unexpected bonds along his journey. Against all impossible odds, Kai somehow managed to secure his ultimate escape. Clearing the deadly dungeon took him 100,000 years and 7 days. A small, sudden noise snapped the legendary warrior back into absolute reality. Fafnir noted her master acting strangely upon returning to their original world. Astaroth panicked over Kai's immense status while Fafnir eagerly suggested a death match. The cowardly demon king Astaroth surrendered completely before their final battle even began. Fafnir eagerly alerted her master that someone was aggressively approaching their position. The arrogant red-haired man arrived, mockingly asking if Kai finished running away. Kai instantly recognized the red-haired man from his terrifying, distant past memories. Staring intensely, Kai realized the man looked incredibly weak compared to his memories. The red-haired summoner smirked confidently, completely unfazed by Kai's dangerous new companions. The arrogant man completely ignored Kai, leering creepily at both Fafnir and Astaroth. Kai stopped his companions from instantly killing the man, deciding to handle it himself. Equipping divine sealing gloves, Kai promised to hold back his overwhelming power. Astaroth's sweat dropped, perfectly understanding that Kai's holding back was still catastrophically lethal. Looking down with absolute contempt, Kai declared the weakling unworthy of his blade. A blindingly fast physical strike effortlessly shattered the screaming man's outstretched hand. The terrified summoner frantically screamed for his hidden monsters to attack Kai. Seamlessly dropping into a flawless combat stance, Kai prepared his legendary sword technique. The horrified monsters scrambled backward in pure terror, desperately trying to escape Kai. Kai executed the devastating first form Brink of Death with absolute blinding speed. The massive beasts were instantly annihilated, proving they stood absolutely no chance. Completely broken, the red-haired summoner tearfully confessed his entire sinister plot without resistance. He revealed that Frankton colluded with the Empire to violently kidnap Princess Rosemary. The Empire deployed Sword Emperor Signial and Supreme Summoner Ens for the kidnapping. Kai felt compelled to protect the princess while eagerly anticipating fighting the Emperor. Fafnir cheered happily as Astaroth nervously noted their master's deeply unsettling, battle-crazed excitement. Knowing time was short, Kai aggressively summoned his legendary subjugation encyclopedia for a distraction. He ordered his summoned army to ruthlessly hunt down any black-robed summoners. The defeated summoners stared in sheer terror as Kai effortlessly commanded legendary monsters. An army of heavily armed grasshopper men stood completely ready to execute violent orders. Monsters rampaged wildly as they received orders to destroy everything in their path. Terrified screams echoed loudly as the violent ambush completely shattered the peaceful camp. Shadowy beasts violently tore through the royal tents while soldiers frantically scrambled. Princess Rose awoke confused by the noise before her maid rushed in. Anna frantically ordered the princess to prepare immediately for a sudden enemy attack. Anna revealed a hidden traitor had allowed the Glittner Empire to ambush them. Before they could flee, a sinister voice mockingly questioned where the princess was going. Anna screamed in terror as enemy forces violently blocked their only escape route. Anna fiercely accused Lord Frankton of completely betraying their beloved homeland. Rose trembled in absolute shock, wondering if her own brother orchestrated this betrayal. Frankton coldly explained his plan to force Rose to marry the Empire's prince. The corrupt noble arrogantly claimed his treason was solely for the kingdom's ultimate benefit. Rose furiously condemned him as a traitor for willingly harming their innocent people. Suddenly, Captain Arnold burst onto the chaotic scene with surging battle energy. Arnold quickly apologized for his delay and fiercely ordered Rose to stand back. Drawing his heavy blade, Arnold roared at Frankton to prepare for immediate battle. Frankton gasped in shock as a towering new enemy suddenly intervened. The Empire's Sword Emperor stepped forward, eager to fight the kingdom's strongest knight. Zigner Gastria proudly introduced himself while demanding a soul-shaking duel to the end. The Lion King and the Sword Emperor clashed violently in a legendary showdown. Onlookers watched in pure awe as the two legendary warriors fought evenly. Without warning, a shadowy beast viciously bit Arnold from his blind spot. Arnold grunted in agony, realizing the cowardly beast had used a paralyzing nerve attack. Enraged, Zigner furiously yelled at Ens for dishonorably interfering with his sacred duel. Ens coldly dismissed Zigner's warrior pride, calling his honorable dueling a pointless hobby. The Dark Summoner stated he was strictly prioritizing the Emperor's capture decree. Rose stared in sheer horror as her strongest protector completely collapsed. Tears streamed down Rose's face as hope rapidly faded from the battlefield. Anna gave a firm nod, realizing they had to abandon the camp immediately. Anna urgently whispered for Rose to run into the forest while enemies argued. The loyal mate firmly insisted the princess's absolute safety remained the highest priority. Enemy soldiers violently grabbed Anna, screaming that nobody would escape the ambush. Anna fought back fiercely, ordering the traitors to release their foul grip. The vile soldiers menacingly asked Frankton for permission to capture the struggling maid. Frankton's men gleefully restrained Rose while violently dragging the screaming Anna away. Rose cried out in absolute despair, calling their treasonous actions entirely unforgivable. Frankton mockingly forced Rose to watch Anna face their cruel wrath as she prayed. Rose squeezed her eyes shut and desperately prayed for any savior to appear. Suddenly, a lone figure silently stepped directly into the chaotic enemy camp. The enemy soldiers stopped entirely, utterly confused by the sudden unknown intruder. Frankton glared at the strange boy casually standing amidst his elite army. With effortless movement, the mysterious arrival completely shattered an enemy's weapon. Kai calmly noted how easily the weapon broke, shocking everyone present. Rose stared in pure disbelief, recognizing Kai as her miraculous and unexpected savior. In this world, every 13-year-old receives a divine blessing known simply as a gift. Some fortunate souls are blessed with the prestigious title of Sword Saint. Others awaken the incredible, battle-ready power of a Spear King. However, Kai Heinemann received the absolute weakest blessing in history. He was famously branded with the completely useless title of Most Incompetent. Snapping to the present, Kai gently helps the startled princess to her feet. Terrified screams erupt as panicked citizens spot massive monsters invading the camp. Kai casually steps forward as his loyal shadowy beasts materialize around him. His monstrous subordinates eagerly volunteer to instantly clean up the weak enemies. Kai hums thoughtfully while observing the absolute chaos unfolding around them. A thoroughly confused Princess Rose frantically asks Kai to explain the situation. She vividly recalls her best friend Rina constantly talking about Kai. Rose remembers hearing that the boy was incredibly weak and entirely harmless. Staring at his overwhelming presence, she refuses to believe he is useless. The battlefield freezes as Kai's legendary beasts assert their absolute dominance. Rose suddenly gasps in shock, desperately calling out to her injured allies. The wounded knight Arnold startles in panic as a gelatinous monster approaches. Kai calmly orders Arnold to remain still while his loyal slimes heal him. Arnold sighs in massive relief as the magical slimes drain the paralyzing venom. Rose asks in sheer awe if he can actually summon magical creatures. Kai clarifies it isn't summoning, just as a jealous Fafnir demands head pats. Chuckling softly, Kai gently pats the tiny dragon while praising her performance. A furious enemy commander violently reprimands Lord Frankton for the absolute disgrace. Sword Emperor Zigner angrily complains to Enns about the pathetic capture delay. Panicked Kingdom Guards scream in sheer terror as the elite Empire soldiers return. Disappointed by the Emperor's aura, Kai steps forward to challenge him directly. Zigner furiously orders Enns to stay back, violently threatening to kill the summoner. Kai sighs heavily, entirely unimpressed by the legendary Sword Emperor's pathetic stance. Rose desperately screams for Kai to retreat while guards try to hold her. Zigner glares in pure confusion as the young boy casually approaches him. Kai coldly declares the Emperor too inexperienced to face a real sword. Gripping a simple wooden branch, Kai boldly taunts the raging Emperor. Zigner roars furiously, swinging his massive legendary blade directly at the boy. Kai smoothly deflects the heavy strike using nothing but the flimsy wooden branch. A rapid flurry of devastating sword strikes completely fails to graze Kai's defenses. Onlookers gasp in absolute disbelief as Kai effortlessly blocks the Emperor. A bewildered Rose asks Arnold how the boy perfectly evades every single attack. The seasoned knight notes their fundamental swordsmanship skills are entirely worlds apart. Arnold claims the massive gap resembles a legendary warrior facing a novice. He realizes this overwhelming power stems from unimaginable and relentless brutal training. Zigner cursed in absolute frustration as the tide of the battle completely turned against him. A heavy, brutal impact suddenly forced the mighty Sword Emperor completely onto his knees. Gasping for air, The defeated warrior stared up in pure shock at his overwhelming opponent. Kai calmly acknowledged the emperor's undeniable sword talent while standing victorious over him. He firmly advised the fallen warrior to reflect on why his predecessor entrusted him with such a legendary title. Showing unexpected mercy, Kai ordered Zigner to return to the empire so his true potential could eventually bloom. The battered sword emperor grunted heavily, utterly humiliated by the profound defeat and unexpected mercy. Enz screamed in sheer panic as he watched the empire's strongest warrior completely crumble. Trembling with fear, the summoner frantically declared Kai an unimaginably dangerous threat. Enz furiously vowed to eliminate the boy immediately before he could threaten the entire empire. Desperate for victory, the panicked summoner initiated a massive ritual to call forth the spirit king Ifrit. Enz ruthlessly sacrificed his own subordinate's mana to fuel the towering inferno entity. The betrayed soldiers screamed in absolute agony as their life force was violently ripped away. Unfazed by the blazing heat, Kai confidently ordered his summoned beast Juramecola to completely crush the fire spirit. The massive elephant beast surged forward with terrifying, earth-shattering momentum. With a deafening roar, Juramecola violently stomped the so-called Spirit King directly into the dirt. The loyal evil god proudly expressed its deep honor in serving Kai while casually obliterating the enemy summon. Shifting his intense gaze, Kai slowly turned his attention directly toward the completely defenseless Enz. The terrified summoner frantically begged for his life, desperately offering Kai endless wealth and imperial glory. Ignoring the pathetic pleas, Kai launched a blindingly fast and decisive physical strike. He coldly stated that a coward who sacrifices his own men possesses absolutely nothing of value. Having entirely resolved the threat, Kai calmly signaled his legendary companions to depart the battlefield. Frankton frantically crawled forward, begging the overwhelmingly powerful boy to serve under Prince Gilbert. The desperate traitor promised Kai a life of absolute luxury if he simply joined their political faction. Glancing over his shoulder, Kai bluntly rejected the corrupt nobleman's desperate political offer. He fiercely condemned any royal family that judged people based on magical gifts as nothing more than pests. Enraged by the blatant disrespect, Anna furiously drew her weapon to defend the kingdom's honor. Princess Rose loudly intervened, urgently ordering her loyal maid to immediately stand down. Rose gently reassured the frustrated Anna, signaling that she actually agreed with the boy's harsh critique. The princess smiled warmly, thrilled to finally meet someone who shared her progressive vision of civilian governance. She passionately shared her ultimate dream of building a completely fair and just world together. Kai calmly pointed out that achieving such a radical dream would require her to abandon her royal title entirely. Bursting with absolute resolve, Princess Rose loudly addressed Kai with her full royal authority. She boldly and officially appointed the bewildered Kai as her personal royal guard. The surrounding survivors stood completely frozen in absolute shock at the unprecedented royal declaration. Anna frantically protested, completely horrified that the princess would choose a branded traitor over a proper knight. Rose firmly defended her choice, praising Kai's unmatched strength and pure, incorruptible character. Blushing deeply, the princess extended her hand and nervously asked Kai to swear his eternal loyalty upon it. Kai stared silently at the delicate royal hand hovering directly in front of him. Relenting with a soft sigh, the legendary warrior gracefully dropped down onto one knee. He gently reached out and softly grasped the young princess's trembling hand. Kai quietly agreed to accept the temporary role strictly until she found a truly suitable replacement. He smirked faintly, vowing to play along with her grand royal charade for the time being. Overjoyed by his acceptance, Princess Rose beamed brightly with genuine, unfiltered happiness. Astaroth and Fafnir cheerfully noted that their master's new troublesome job would definitely attract exciting new enemies to crush. Princess Rose carefully drafted a heartfelt letter addressed directly to her best friend Rena. She explained her journey toward the great city of Bals to hand over the traitorous Lord Frankton while entrusting the letter to Captain Arnold. Meanwhile, the young princess glanced thoughtfully toward her mysterious new protector. She wrote about how shocking the news of her recent ambush and Frankton's collusion with the Empire must have been. Noting Kai's heroic defense against the Imperial soldiers, she paused to ask why he was suddenly laughing at her face. Kai quickly dismissed her question while she documented how reassuring his constant presence felt. The royal entourage continued their steady march away from the dangerous battlefield. They settled into a much quieter pace as they safely approached their temporary destination. Rose confirmed the king ordered them to remain in the current town for several weeks until Baus was officially deemed safe. Smiling warmly, she expressed her genuine gratitude that Kai actually accepted the temporary role of her royal guard. She admitted that a refusal would have forced them to officially appoint Sword Saint Rina Grot instead. Kai silently wondered if he only felt compelled to protect Rose because she was best friends with his childhood friend Rina. Realizing their mutual goals, Kai noted that protecting Rose effectively kept Rina away from highly dangerous royal missions. Rose lowered her head slightly and offered a sincere apology for pulling him into the complicated political situation. Kai firmly reminded her of his substitute status, though he preferred this over being completely kept in the dark. Blushing slightly, the princess nervously asked her new guard for one additional favor. A loud, rhythmic snoring echoed heavily down the quiet hallway of the local inn. Kai forcefully threw the wooden door open to wake his deeply slumbering companions. He shouted at the top of his lungs, demanding everyone immediately wake up. The startled monsters frantically scrambled awake in sheer, utter confusion. The sudden commotion revealed Astaroth's true humanoid form sitting up in bed. Kai screamed in absolute shock upon discovering the terrifying former demon king was actually a woman. Ignoring the chaotic revelation, Astaroth calmly greeted the princess with a polite morning wish. A groggy Fafnir rubbed her sleepy eyes and casually muttered a soft morning greeting. Rose cheerfully asked the pair to venture into town to gather specific ingredients for a cake. Thrilled by the idea, Fafnir eagerly listened as Rose promised to bake a heartfelt cake to show her sincere gratitude. Kai accepted the errand and formally entrusted the princess's absolute safety to his loyal beast Nemia. With their mission set, Kai and Fafnir enthusiastically waved goodbye and headed out into the bustling town. Rose watched them leave, secretly glad her requested errand successfully forced her overprotective guards to finally take a break. She smiled warmly, fully understanding that their indifferent attitudes masked incredibly serious and caring hearts. Kai and Fafnir explored Papla, a lively post-town deeply nestled in the Silk Forest and famous for trading red Papla fruit. The town served as a safe haven of true freedom where persecuted beastfolk could gather peacefully. Kai looked around in awe, remembering the countless amazing stories his hunter mother used to tell him about this vibrant place. He casually pondered the practical idea of officially registering as a hunter to earn some much-needed money. His peaceful thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a loud, aggressive commotion echoing from the nearby market square. Curious about the rising tension, the duo immediately pushed through the dense crowd to investigate the scene. The desperate townspeople proudly presented their absolute finest harvested Papla fruit to an arrogant noble named Lord Getty. The arrogant lord stared down judgmentally while the merchants eagerly begged him to taste their finest harvest. A hidden servant standing directly behind the nobles secretly channeled dark magic toward the fresh fruit. Kai's sharp eyes instantly caught the sneaky servant intentionally using dark magic to violently rot the offered fruit. Lord Getty took a bite and furiously spat it out, screaming that the fruit was entirely spoiled. The once beautiful red fruit instantly decayed into a disgusting, blackened mess right before everyone's eyes. The furious envoy declared that feeding him rotten fruit was a direct and unforgivable insult to Prince Gilbert himself. He violently threatened the terrified merchants, aggressively stating they had just made an enemy of the entire Blood Alliance. While the merchants frantically begged for their lives, Kai silently glared at the corrupt officials who magically ruined the fruit themselves. Lord Getty demanded an impossible 50 million ores in reparations, proving the Amelia nobles were truly irredeemable scum. Fafnir nervously tugged at Kai's sleeve, deeply hesitant about getting involved in such a massive political mess. Before Kai could act, a loud and unexpected voice suddenly shattered the tense standoff. Kai and Fafnir turned in absolute surprise as two highly imposing figures confidently approached the corrupt envoy. The newcomers proudly introduced themselves as Cider of the Thorn Sword and Copper the Sage, elite leaders of a sacred guild. The crowd gasped in absolute shock as the legendary four sacred guilds made their grand and unexpected appearance. A corrupt official praised Prince Gilbert's kindness before aggressively declaring that the townspeople's actions absolutely could not be overlooked. A representative from the Coin Guild smoothly stepped forward, urging the furious official to calm his anger out of deference to their guild. The official angrily ordered the mayor to bring proper fruit next time, reluctantly agreeing to let the incident slide solely for the guild's sake. The terrified townspeople sighed in massive relief, praising the Coin Guild for their incredibly timely intervention. Watching from the shadows, Kai quickly realized the entire farce was a coordinated scam orchestrated between the Count and the guild. Deciding it was best not to get involved, Kai watched as a mysterious dog named Finn suddenly ran off into the dense crowd. Angry townsfolk violently confronted a beast folk boy, blaming his father's papla fruit for completely angering the dangerous count. The furious mob viciously insulted the boy's half-beast folk heritage, swearing to never buy their ruined fruit again. The desperate boy cried out for his family's survival as the unforgiving mob aggressively told him to just die. A sinister voice suddenly interrupted the chaos, eagerly volunteering to handle the brutal killing for the angry mob. The crowd gasped in sheer terror as the notorious and violent parasite gang officially arrived on the scene. Panic violently erupted as the ruthless gang members began terrorizing the helpless bystanders. The gang leader coldly declared that keeping the Zaruba family alive was far too inconvenient for their dark plans. The boy tearfully defended his family's first-rate harvest, desperately wishing he possessed the strength of a hunter to fight back. A towering gang member menacingly raised his weapon, threatening to crush the boy's head like rotten fruit. Suddenly, a fierce dog leaped courageously in front of the boy to block the incoming lethal strike. The brave canine growled viciously, standing its ground to protect the terrified beast-folk child. The boy stared in absolute shock as the unexpected canine fiercely guarded him from the towering thugs. The enraged gang member violently threatened to stomp the protective mutt directly into the dirt. The protective dog began glowing with intense magical energy, prompting Kai to frantically warn the beast against setting the entire town ablaze. The magical canine calmly apologized for running ahead, leaving the terrified beast folk boy completely speechless as he realized the dog could talk. The arrogant gang members mockingly ordered the interfering tourists to mind their own business and get lost. Kai stepped smoothly into the confrontation, coldly promising to stick much more than just his nose into their corrupt affairs. Furious at the sheer disrespect, the violent thugs immediately launched a coordinated assault against the lone warrior. The gang leader roared furiously, commanding his armed subordinates to violently crush the arrogant boy. The thugs recklessly unleashed a chaotic barrage of magical water and fire projectiles directly at Kai. Dodging effortlessly, Kai casually confirmed with his companions that they only needed to leave a single gang member alive for questioning. Kai moved with absolute blinding speed, seamlessly weaving through the lethal magical barrage to close the distance. The fierce warrior unleashed a devastating physical counterattack, completely obliterating the entire gang in a fraction of a second. The single surviving thug collapsed to the ground in pure terror, utterly horrified by Kai's monstrous strength. Kai gently deployed a healing slime to cure the boy's injuries, reminding the grateful child to thank the loyal dog for protecting him. Kai firmly ordered Astaroth and Fafnir to escort the rescued boy directly back to Princess Rose's safe house. The companions eagerly accepted their escort mission while curiously asking what their master planned to do next. Kai violently grabbed the terrified survivor, coldly demanding to be taken directly to the parasite gang's boss. Dragging his captive away, Kai grimly noted that the rotten fruit was merely a small piece of the town's massive conspiracy. Meanwhile, back at the inn, a cheerful atmosphere filled the kitchen as a freshly baked cake was proudly presented. Rose happily expressed her gratitude for using the dining hall's oven while her loyal maid praised the incredibly delicious dessert. Astaroth mentioned Kai's soft-hearted nature while Rose realized her protector would be gone all night conducting his dangerous investigation. Rose stared quietly at the delicious cake, clearly disappointed that Kai could not share the peaceful moment with them. The princess softly admitted she really wanted Kai to taste the cake since he personally taught her the special recipe. Fafnir enthusiastically devoured her slice and cheered Rose up by suggesting she simply bake another one later. Rose giggled warmly, her spirits instantly lifted by the tiny dragon's endless and cheerful appetite. Deep within the silk jungle cave outside of town, a sinister dark mage performed a highly forbidden resurrection ritual. Intense magical energy violently pulsed through the dark cavern as a terrifying monstrosity slowly began to awaken. The arrogant dark mage commanded the newly revived beast to violently devour absolutely everything in its path. The massive shadowy creature opened its glowing eyes, silently preparing to unleash total absolute destruction. Anna furiously stormed forward, demanding to know what Kai was thinking. She angrily scolded the newly appointed royal guard for daring to interfere with dangerous town matters. Glaring sharply, the maid swore she would never forgive him for putting the princess in danger. Kai casually scratched his head, offering a mild apology for his reckless actions. He calmly explained that the conspiracy directly involved nobles connected to the Amelia royal family. Glancing toward Princess Rose, Kai pointed out that she would never have stayed silent about such deep corruption anyway. Stepping forward eagerly, the princess immediately asked if there was anything she could do to help. While Anna panicked in the background, Kai requested that Rose gather everyone for a beast folk information session. A massive crowd of anxious beast folk quickly assembled to hear the emergency announcement. Addressing the crowd, Kai explained that the town's entire prosperity relied heavily on their high-quality agricultural goods. He revealed that greedy nobles and fame-hungry guilds desperately wanted to monopolize their valuable farmland. Kai listed the corrupt mayor and the violent parasite thugs as key players in this massive conspiracy. Projecting a magical recording into the air, he presented undeniable proof that these groups planned to drive the beast folk out. The glowing projection clearly displayed the mayor praising the count for using magic to rot the crops. The crowd watched in shock as the count casually conspired with Cider from the Coin Guild. The recording revealed the group's sinister plan to orchestrate a fake bandit attack on the town. Cider arrogantly boasted that the Coin Guild would step in to shine as the town's saviors. The guild planned to violently frame the bandit attack as a staged beastfolk rebellion. Their ultimate goal was to capture the beastfolk as slaves while bribing the parasite gang to clean up the mess. The projection shifted to show the battered parasite leader desperately begging for his life after spilling every detail. Kai's loyal subordinate Beelzebub loomed menacingly over the gang leader, having expertly tortured the information out of him. The crowd murmured in absolute horror, struggling to process the mayor's deep betrayal. The beastfolk trembled at the sheer cruelty of the renowned Coin Guild framing them to steal their homes. Anna nervously whispered to Rose that requesting royal reinforcements would take far too long. Panic erupted through the crowd as terrified citizens denied the ridiculous truth and attempted to flee. The young beast boy Shira cried silently, mourning his parents who had collapsed from the overwhelming stress. Shira gripped his head in despair, convinced that absolutely no one would believe such a terrible truth. Kai firmly placed a reassuring hand on the boy's head, asking what he truly wanted to do. Wiping his tears, Shira fiercely declared his desire to protect his town and avenge their ruined fruit. Kai smirked down at the brave boy, deeply impressed by his unwavering resolve. Inspired by the boy's courage, the crowd suddenly rallied, shouting that the Zaruba family's fruit was always perfectly fresh. Shira gasped in sheer awe as the entire town firmly united behind his family's honorable reputation. Kai gently nudged the boy forward, explaining that this unified trust was his family's true strength. Tears of gratitude streamed down Shira's face as he sincerely thanked Kai for revealing the truth. Kai humbly brushed off the thanks, reminding the boy that this was his own town to protect. A worried woman spoke up, pointing out that simple farmers had absolutely no idea how to fight. Kai admitted he could easily wipe out the bandits alone, but he could not stay to protect them forever. He passionately declared that the beast folk must secure their own place using their own absolute strength. The desperate crowd nodded firmly, their fear slowly transforming into burning determination. Throwing his hand up, Kai proudly promised his full support to anyone brave enough to fight for their freedom. Kai stared menacingly, leaving everyone wondering exactly what he was planning to do. A few days later inside the Silk Forest Caves, the Calamity Group confidently discussed their easy job of reviving the demon beast Tetsu to obliterate Papla Town. Their leader sternly reminded them that a massive 100 million ore contract absolutely guaranteed their total commitment to completing the Dark Mission. An arrogant subordinate furiously defended Lord Nail, boasting that the town would be a wasteland in mere hours. A mysterious figure suddenly interrupted, invoking the name Dilma to issue a terrifying absolute command. The arrogant subordinate screamed in agonizing pain as Dilma's horrific magic brutally melted him away into nothingness. The surviving bandits trembled before the terrifying word spirit user, who mercifully spared them solely because they were important sponsors. Dilma coldly ordered the terrified survivors to flee the cave while he was still feeling somewhat generous. Panic utterly consumed the surviving bandits as they frantically retreated toward Baus to escape the nightmare. The fleeing mercenaries frantically abandoned their posts, screaming that remaining for surveillance was absolute suicide. Watching from the shadows, Kai calmly noted that unknown dark forces and a monstrous beast were actively plotting an invasion. He sighed in mild annoyance, wondering if the bloodthirsty invaders had simply caught the scent of their impending victory festivities. A shadowy figure dashed silently through the dense forest, racing against time to prepare for the incoming onslaught. Accepting the sudden challenge, Kai smirked and decided this was the perfect opportunity to test the beastfolk's intense new combat training. Meanwhile, the hired thugs breached the town's perimeter, casually discussing their specific orders to disguise themselves as beast folk. The greedy bandit leader abandoned the original plan, violently ordering his men to completely ransack the entire town. The vicious thugs roared in absolute excitement as they charged forward to violently plunder the peaceful settlement. A menacing bandit crept toward a quiet home, eagerly preparing to violently kick the front door open. Shira stepped out from the shadows, courageously halting the towering intruder completely in his tracks. The bandit sneered mockingly, entirely unimpressed by the tiny beast boy standing defiantly before him. The arrogant thug raised his weapon, mockingly telling the child he should be fast asleep. Shira instantly lunged forward with blinding speed, delivering a devastating counterattack straight into the bandit's gut. The massive thug collapsed instantly, prompting the hidden townspeople to cheer wildly for Shira's incredible knockout blow. Staring at his trembling fists, Shira realized Kai's brutal training had miraculously turned him into a capable warrior. A flashback revealed Kai standing before the beast folk a few days prior, passionately promising to forge them into powerful warriors. Kai utilized supreme magic to slow time down to an absolute crawl, guaranteeing the villagers had years to train in mere hours. Fafnir cheerfully stepped up as their drill sergeant, demanding they call her Professor Faf while they prepared to crush their enemies. The tiny dragon ruthlessly ordered the exhausted villagers to sprint 500 kilometers and complete thousands of brutal exercises. Kai meticulously outlined a tactical repulsion plan to completely overwhelm the invading bandit forces. The villagers realized the invading bandit numbers were pathetically small compared to their newly trained, unified beast folk army. They trained relentlessly to master a single flawless strike, knowing absolute victory required perfect precision. The beast folk roared with unified determination, eager to proudly display their newfound strength to the corrupt ringleaders. Back in the present, the corrupt mayor and count casually drank wine, completely unaware of the absolute chaos unfolding outside. The arrogant count demanded more alcohol, thoroughly enjoying his lavish and entirely corrupt lifestyle. The vile men laughed menacingly, firmly believing their dark conspiracy was executing flawlessly. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door to their private chamber exploded violently off its iron hinges. The mayor screamed in pure terror as the furious, fully trained beast folk breached their luxurious hideout. A vengeful villager violently shattered the mayor's jaw with a single strike, loudly declaring it payback for ruining their precious harvest. Across the entire town, the empowered beast folk effortlessly crushed the remaining invaders with absolute sheer dominance. The villagers cheered victoriously, finally realizing they possessed the true strength to defend their own homes. Another bandit was sent flying violently through the air, completely overwhelmed by a villager's flawless martial arts strike. Tears of absolute joy streamed down the villagers' faces as they proudly reclaimed their peaceful town. Watching from the rooftops, Kai noted the bandits were incredibly weak and marveled at the beast folk's rapid, miraculous growth. Princess Rose smiled warmly, completely relieved that Kai's intense training plan had miraculously succeeded. Kai immediately shattered her relief, coldly warning the princess that the true battle had not even started yet. He firmly instructed her to stay put and watch closely, ignoring her frantic, confused questions. In the town square, the corrupt coin guild loudly arrived, pretending to be utterly confused by the late-night chaos. Cider arrogantly drew his weapon, falsely accusing the heroic beastfolk of staging the violent bandit attack. The beast folk fearlessly presented the captured bandits, immediately realizing the heavily armed guild members were much tougher opponents. Cider stared in sheer disbelief at the massive pile of entirely defeated and bound bandits. The beast folk aggressively interrogated the bound thugs, publicly asking if the coin guild orchestrated the entire violent attack. A terrified bandit instantly confessed, loudly revealing the guild specifically ordered them to frame the innocent beast folk. The betrayed thugs realized the guild fully intended to slaughter them to secure absolute glory. Cider frantically tried to control the narrative, desperately screaming that bandits were nothing but filthy liars. The confused townspeople began whispering, slowly connecting the dots about why the invaders wore beastfolk disguises. Kai stepped boldly out of the shadows, coldly pointing out that the guild's entire treacherous plot was now completely exposed. A furious Cider pointed his trembling sword at Kai, aggressively accusing the boy of orchestrating the guild's massive downfall. Cider unleashed a massive magical thorn attack, violently screaming for the boy to state his name before dying. Kai tilted his head slightly, completely unfazed by the deadly magical thorns rapidly surging toward him. With absolute calmness, he casually introduced himself as Kai Heinemann right before the massive strike connected. Kai swung his bare hand with blinding speed, instantly obliterating the incoming magical thorns into absolute nothingness. The remaining guild members trembled in absolute terror, utterly horrified that their elite leaders were completely annihilated in a single blow. A terrified survivor collapsed to the ground, desperately crawling backward to escape the monstrous boy. Kai stepped smoothly over the defeated guild leaders, calmly claiming he was simply helping innocent people in need. He stared down menacingly at the pathetic survivors, coldly mocking their arrogant and unearned heroic titles. A dark, terrifying smirk stretched across Kai's face as he promised to aggressively lend the fake heroes a very painful hand. A seasoned hunter wondered in disbelief if the rumors were truly about that specific Kai. He recalled Kai as the legendary holder of the world's most incompetent gift. The hunter confirmed Kai was indeed the son of his former teammate Maria Heinemann. Processing the sheer absurdity of the situation, he marveled at how that same Kai was now Princess Rosemary's royal guard. Having seen the boy's timid swordsmanship in the past, he found it completely impossible to believe Kai could destroy the parasite gang alone. He acknowledged that if the intelligence came directly from Princess Rose, Kai absolutely had to be present in the town. The hunter recounted receiving Princess Rose's urgent letter requesting immediate cooperation to dismantle a vile conspiracy led by Count Getty and the Coin Guild. Recognizing that a sacred guild engaging in corruption threatened the Hunter Guild's entire prestige, his elite team was swiftly dispatched to intervene. The seasoned investigators silently landed on a high rooftop overlooking the quiet town. Central Guild Investigation Chief Johnson instructed A-rank hunter Olga to immediately capture the corrupt masterminds orchestrating the chaos. Looking down into the streets, Johnson spotted suspicious thugs dragging a captive beast woman toward the mayor's estate. Johnson confidently ordered Olga to secure the mayor and count while he hunted down the Coin Guild leaders. Bursting into the opulent room, Olga aggressively demanded immediate answers from the corrupt mayor. She froze in absolute confusion upon discovering the mayor and count were already beaten and securely tied up on the floor. The royal maid Anna sighed in massive relief, realizing the newcomer was the official Hunter Guild backup Princess Rose had summoned. Eager to rejoin her companions, Anna happily handed the bound captives over to the bewildered hunter. Anna casually noted that she would have been forced to leave the prisoners with one of Kai's terrifying subordinates if Olga had not arrived. Olga trembled slightly as she imagined dealing with the towering, monstrous entity standing silently in the background. The elite hunter stammered in absolute shock, struggling to comprehend that such a horrific beast was merely Kai's subordinate. Olga broke into a cold sweat, completely overwhelmed by the absurd and terrifying reality of the situation. Meanwhile, Chief Johnson cautiously surveyed the dark perimeter just outside the walls of Papla Town. He squinted through the darkness, deeply confused to find a group resembling the Coin Guild completely incapacitated outside the gates. Johnson silently wondered what kind of absolute chaos was truly unfolding within the normally peaceful settlement. A swift scout suddenly arrived beside the chief to deliver an urgent battlefield report. Johnson quickly demanded a full update on the town's current defensive status. The scout confirmed the thieves attacked as planned but were completely fought off and captured by the incredibly strong beastfolk. Stunned by the beastfolk's sudden monstrous strength, the scout explained that someone claiming to be Kai Heinemann orchestrated the massive counterattack while Coin openly confessed to their conspiracy. Johnson screamed in pure disbelief as a colossal, terrifying monster suddenly loomed in the dark distance. Back at the safe house, Princess Rose sighed heavily while complaining about Kai's incredibly reckless behavior. She pouted in frustration, wishing her unpredictable royal guard would at least explain his grand plans before charging into battle. Her complaints were abruptly cut short as a set of rapid footsteps echoed loudly down the nearby corridor. Chief Johnson sprinted frantically toward the princess, screaming her name in pure panic. Rose and Anna turned in sheer surprise at the sudden, chaotic intrusion. The princess stepped forward cautiously, politely asking if the frantic man was the requested guild reinforcement. Johnson quickly apologized for his abrupt entrance while confirming he was indeed dispatched by the Central Guild. Recognizing his sheer terror, Rose immediately questioned the reason behind his incredibly urgent and panicked expression. Waving away her concerns about his manners, Johnson frantically asked if the princess was already aware of the impending doom. Rose stared at him in complete bewilderment, desperately asking what terrible event he was talking about. Trembling with absolute dread, Johnson revealed that one of the 4 legendary great beasts of the world was approaching. The terrified chief screamed that the ancient seal on the demon beast Totetsu had been completely broken. Moments before Totetsu's explosive arrival, tense anticipation blankets the perimeter outside the towering walls of Papla. Standing firmly before the assembled guild, Kai observes the confused warriors in absolute silence. A bewildered guild member steps forward, demanding to know why Kai went through the trouble of gathering and healing them. Unfazed by their confusion, Kai coldly orders the aspiring heroes of Coin to protect the town from an impending monster horde. The assembled warriors recoil in pure disbelief, openly questioning the sanity of his sudden command. Suddenly, the earth shatters as a monstrous entity erupts violently from the ground, sending the crowd into a sheer panic. A colossal, terrifying beast fully materializes from the dust, looming menacingly over the trembling adventurers. The monstrous creature unleashes a deafening roar, violently shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Recognizing the legendary beast Totetsu, a terrified warrior notes that it usually requires the combined might of the hero, sacred guilds, and the kingdom's army to defeat. Trembling with dread, the adventurers scream that their small guild cannot possibly handle such an apocalyptic threat alone. Coldly ignoring their desperate pleas, Kai reminds them that slaying such monsters is the exact duty of so-called heroes. Demanding they finally show their true courage, Kai watches apathetically as the guild members shriek in unadulterated horror. Desperate adventurers slam against an invisible barrier, horrified to realize that Kai's subordinates magically sealed off the entire town. Panicked fighters strike frantically at the invisible wall, realizing their only escape route is completely blocked. Kai mockingly assures the trapped warriors that they can fight freely since the monsters are unable to breach the town's defenses. Begging pathetically for mercy, a cowardly member blames Count Getty, the mayor, and Seder for dragging him into this deadly mess. The chaotic guild members instantly turn on each other, screaming and viciously assigning blame as their morale shatters. Refusing to die in a pointless massacre, a terrified warrior turns and sprints frantically away from the looming beast. Before he can escape, a brutal shockwave violently strikes him down, leaving him gasping in absolute agony. Realizing retreat is entirely impossible, Caleb curses furiously and reluctantly readies his weapon for battle. Kai coldly issues his final ultimatum to win and survive or lose and die, sparking a desperate, screaming charge from the guild. Warning bells toll frantically across the besieged town, echoing the imminent danger of the monster assault. Town guards sprint rapidly through the streets, frantically ordering all citizens to stay locked safely inside their homes. A stunned defender questions the return of the legendary beast, wondering aloud if Kai intentionally shattered the ancient seal. Unsure of the actual truth, another guard deduces that Kai Heinemann masterminded this entire chaotic scenario. They watch in awe, realizing Kai deliberately exiled the Coin Guild outside the walls to handle the monstrous extermination alone. Sweating with sheer fear, a defender admits that if the beast is real, even the hero's absolute power might fail to stop its rampage. Desperate orders ring out, commanding the guards to request Royal Army reinforcements and evacuate the terrified residents immediately. Suddenly, a calm and highly authoritative voice echoes through the tense air, completely dismissing the need for any reinforcements. The guards instantly recognize Siramekala as one of Kai's loyal subordinates and cautiously thank her for her hard work. Siramekala casually announces she has arrived to drop off the unconscious individuals she found scattered across the town. The defenders gasp in utter shock as they identify the limp bodies of Count Getty, the mayor, and Olga. Siramekala smoothly explains that Olga simply fainted from sheer terror at the mere sight of her. Stepping forward with absolute authority, Miss Rose sternly orders the defenders to stand down and abandon their calls for backup. Despite desperate warnings that Totetsu could annihilate the entire region, Rose calmly insists there is absolutely nothing to worry about. A panicked defender attempts to redirect Astaroth, begging for her immediate assistance with the ongoing civilian evacuation. Completely ignoring the plea, Astaroth firmly reminds Miss Rose that their master ordered them to simply stand back and observe. Outside the reinforced walls, the chaotic battlefield descends into a horrific bloodbath as the Coin members are brutally crushed. Bleeding heavily and entirely defeated, a dying warrior stares blankly at the carnage, quietly questioning where his guild went so wrong. Reflecting on their tarnished past, he realizes Coin lost its way by obsessively chasing money, fame, and noble recognition. He finally understands that true heroism requires inner courage and selfless sacrifice rather than mere empty bravado. Recalling Kai's harsh demand for true courage, the battered warrior tightly grips his shattered sword with newfound resolve. Pushing past his agonizing, life-threatening injuries, he forces himself back onto his trembling feet to face the towering monster. Rallying his broken comrades, he shouts fiercely that victory is still somehow within their desperate grasp. Igniting a final spark of hope, he commands the ruined guild to pull themselves together and seize their ultimate moment to survive. The surviving members roar in unified defiance, launching a desperate and totally united counterattack against the legendary beast. Suddenly, the battlefield trembles violently as Totetsu aggressively begins to unleash its horrifying true form. Facing overwhelming, unimaginable doom, the frozen warriors stare upward, quietly wondering if this is truly their final moment. Before anyone can fully grasp the situation, the fierce beastfolk suddenly arrive on the battlefield. Surging forward with undeniable power, the beastfolk officially join forces with the struggling coin guild. Staring in sheer disbelief, the battered human warriors stammer out a shocked greeting to their unexpected saviors. Clarifying his true intentions, the beastfolk leader sternly warns that he is only keeping them alive so they can be properly punished for their crimes later. A heavily wounded guild member groans in pain, entirely unable to argue against the harsh but fair judgment. Launching themselves into the fray, the enraged beastfolk relentlessly strike back against the monstrous swarm. Weapons clash with terrifying force as the powerful beastfolk warriors expertly carve through the front line of beasts. Unleashing a devastating flurry of attacks, the agile fighters easily overwhelm the remaining monster foot soldiers. Dust violently explodes across the chaotic battlefield as a massive strike sends enemy creatures flying into the air. A stunned observer gasps in absolute shock, struggling to comprehend the sheer ferocity of the beastfolk counterattack. Questioning their noble decision, an ally asks the beastfolk why they are helping the exact same people who previously tried to sell them into slavery. The beastfolk leader admits he deeply despises the guild, but firmly states that leaving them to die would make his people no better than the ruthless slavers. Pushing his personal hatred aside, he declares that their ultimate priority is protecting their precious town at all costs. Impressed by their unwavering conviction, the observer hums in quiet approval and acknowledges that the beastfolk's resolve is completely genuine. Trusting their newfound allies, the observer officially leaves the grim fate of the Coin Guild entirely in the capable hands of the Hunter Guild. Expressing his deep gratitude, the observer promises to stay back and carefully watch over the unfolding battle. Empowering the brave beastfolk, he commands them to protect their hometown and boldly take the place of the false heroes. Roaring with renewed battle lust, the fierce warriors announce the start of round 2 as they violently charge the colossal monster. Explosions furiously rock the battlefield as the united fighters unleash a synchronized barrage against the legendary beast. Massive shockwaves ripple through the shattered earth, showcasing the incredible physical might of the beast folk vanguard. Watching in utter disbelief, an adventurer excitedly shouts that the beast folk are actually overwhelming the legendary Totetsu. Shouting crucial tactical orders, a fighter commands everyone to prioritize the main body so the monsters immediately stop spawning. Suddenly, an observant fighter hums in pure confusion as a strange figure catches his eye in the distance. Narrowing his eyes through the thick dust, the fighter locks his intense gaze onto a suspicious man standing near the beast. Realizing the dark truth, he wonders if this hidden mastermind is the one who revived Totetsu while disguising himself among the small fry. Desperately calling for backup, a battered fighter screams out to Jiruma for a helping hand against the relentless assault. Clicking his tongue in immense annoyance, the mysterious villain watches his monstrous creation struggle against the mortal defenders. Mocking the legendary beast as completely pathetic, the villain angrily commands Totetsu to shut up and exterminate the annoying pests already. Complaining about the frustrating delay, the villain pulls out a recently unearthed artifact known as the Soul Domination Orb. Smirking with twisted excitement, he happily declares that using the rare item on Totetsu is the absolute perfect experiment. A blinding light aggressively erupts from the monster, prompting the terrified fighters to scream out in mass confusion. Laughing maniacally at the terrifying result, the villain rejoices upon discovering the artifact provides a massive physical enhancement. Horrified by the sudden transformation, a defender frantically warns everyone to fall back as Totetsu aggressively regenerates its severed tail. A piercing scream violently shatters the air as the empowered monster launches a blindingly fast surprise attack. The colossal beast relentlessly smashes its newly regenerated tail into the earth, effortlessly crushing the front line of defenders. Desperately screaming her comrade's name, A terrified warrior watches helplessly as Saliupa takes a direct and devastating hit. Panicking over their completely useless attacks, a fighter begs for a retreat after realizing their weapons can no longer pierce the armored beast. Surveying the crumbling battlefield, a desperate defender realizes that absolutely everyone is struggling against the newly enhanced monster. Realizing that victory is entirely impossible, a terrified leader desperately commands Shira to run for her life. Looming menacingly over the completely broken defenders, the unstoppable beast prepares to deliver a final and devastating blow to the town. Stepping onto the battlefield, Kai praises Shira and assures the exhausted fighters they have done enough. Wasting no time, he immediately calls out to his subordinate Nemiya. He swiftly orders her to safely evacuate everyone inside her magical barrier. Acknowledging the command without hesitation, Nemiya prepares to act. A powerful protective shield begins to form, securing the weary defenders from the impending clash. Drawing his weapon, Kai calmly declares that he will personally handle the rest of the threat. A tense silence falls over the ruined landscape as he locks eyes with the enemy. Furious at the sudden interruption, the villain commands Totetsu to devour the outsiders for daring to interfere. Unfazed by the roaring beast, Kai reflects that this battle was meant to be the beastfolk's triumphant story. He quietly honors their brave resolve to stand up and protect their beloved hometown of Papla. Noticing the lone swordsman, the arrogant villain scoffs and wonders if the fleeing army accidentally left one fool behind. Lowering his stance, Kai channels his immense power and initiates his second form. He explodes forward with blinding speed, unleashing the devastating lightning flash technique. A brilliant streak of pure energy effortlessly slices through the colossal monster. Confused by the sudden stillness, the villain frantically asks his legendary beast what is wrong. Sheathing his blade, Kai coldly informs the mastermind that the creature is already dead. The villain stares in sheer, unadulterated shock as reality sets in. Without warning, the massive body of Totetsu violently splits apart. The distant observers gasp in absolute awe, unable to believe the beast exploded from a single blow. Turning his piercing glare toward the creator, Kai admits the villain's cowardly interference truly disgusted him. He harshly warns the trembling fool not to expect even a shred of mercy. Realizing Kai is a genuine monster, the terrified villain immediately raises his hands and begs for surrender. Desperate to survive, he frantically promises to reveal whatever secrets the swordsman wants to know. Secretly, the villain plots to use his hidden artifact, hoping the power of cursed words will elevate him to Kai's level. He cowers pathetically, silently waiting for the perfect opening to activate his trump card. Seeing right through the ruse, Kai mocks the villain and orders him to hurry up and use the orb. Kai ruthlessly promises to grant a swift death if the resulting transformation proves to have even the slightest worth. Smirking at the challenge, Jiruma activates the orb and firmly commands himself to maintain his rationality during the search. Dark energy aggressively swirls around his body, instantly triggering a horrifying mutation. Reveling in his overflowing new strength, the monstrous Jiruma laughs maniacally and declares he no longer fears anyone.